Reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
An amber danger to life warning has been issued as 100-mile-an-hour winds blast Britain. Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Thursday, the 17th of February, and this is Breakfast on GB News with me, Angela Rippon, and Eamonn Holmes.
And you're very welcome. Lovely to see a TV legend, a news legend. We're live across the country, indeed throughout the world, on TV, on radio, and YouTube. YouTube apparently where you're watching in your thousands. So wherever you are, however you're watching or listening to us, make sure to stay with us between now and 9:30.
Leading the news this morning, the Met Office has issued an amber danger to life warning after Storm Dudley disrupted transport and has left thousands yet again without power. The UK is now bracing for Storm Eunice, which is expected to blast the UK with blizzards and 100-mile-an-hour gales.
It's been reported that Russian troops are still arriving at the border, despite President Putin's claims of a partial drawdown of forces. We'll get the latest. We'll be speaking to the Armed Forces Minister later in the programme.
The Metropolitan Police will investigate Prince Charles's charity over allegations that it offered a Saudi national cash for honours.
Also coming up this morning, England will follow Wales and Scotland to start offering COVID jabs to all over 5s, but they won't be prioritised over MMR or HPV jabs. You can join in any of our discussions. You can email us gbviews@gbnews.uk. You can tweet at GB News, and please make Miss Rippon very welcome.
Well, the Met Office has issued an amber danger to life warning after thousands of homes in the northeast of England were once again without power. Train services were cut off after Storm Dudley hit last night.
However, days of extreme weather still lie ahead with a second storm. This one's called Eunice, set to hit southern Scotland and other parts of England. Our reporter Rachel Sweeney has spoken to people facing the storms while also recovering from the devastating weather in November.
Storm Eunice will be the 5th storm to rip through the northeast of England in 4 months. Winds of up to 90 miles per hour destroyed parts of the region before Christmas, with clean-up operations still going on in parts of Northumberland. Storm Eunice is predicted to cause more power cuts, more property damage and more travel disruption. With some parts of the northeast of England still recovering from the effects of Storm Arwen that hit the region back in November, some people have said that it's going to be very difficult to even contemplate another storm hitting the region and also the recovery effort that will follow.
Oh, it's been terrible, like frightening, because even like the trees in my garden, they were like fell over on my fence, and it's like you go to bed and you don't know what you're going to wake up to.
Not just people losing roof tiles, people not being able to get out of the house. My mother-in-law's coming up 92. She can't get out at all with the weather the way it's been. The litter from everybody's bins being blown over. I came down to the beach this morning and literally it was horrific.
I would definitely say anyone living coastal, especially old people that rely on public transport. A lot of the public transport's just been very hit and miss for people when it comes to getting to work or just even out the house.
The North East people rally together and help each other, which is really good. But I definitely think we should probably have more support from the government.
I think for older people, going out of doors, feeling unsteady on the feet in strong winds and heavy rains, pretty scary, really.
Hundreds of thousands of homes have been without power during storms. Northern Power Grid has been heavily criticised for its response to Storm Arwen because some people were still relying on generators weeks after the storm hit. Storms Dudley and Eunice are hitting the northeast one after the other, and Northern Power Grid say they're expecting disruption. In a statement, they said, "We are closely tracking the weather and have ensured that our resources are in place to respond if the forecasted back-to-back storms impact our network." Our network control engineers have capability to restore power supplies remotely, switching electricity through alternative routes on our network wherever possible to get customers back on supply. In parallel, our frontline workforce will be deployed to carry out local switching and repairs to restore power as safely and quickly as the conditions allow. People across the region are reminded to only travel if necessary, avoid coastal areas during storms and to take extra care. Rachel Sweeney, GB News.
Well, look, that's our report of how this storm is affecting. If you've got fears for the next storm that will apparently hit tomorrow, or it's affected you in some way that we're not reflecting, just tweet us today at GB News.
Yeah, because you're in the front line. Well, joining us now for even more on this story is Jim Dale. He's a senior meteorologist at the British Weather Services. And morning to you, Jim.
Good morning, Angela.
Good morning. Start by telling us, if you will, what we can expect from this second storm. Eunice, she sounds like a right madam, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does. And she's well out at sea at the moment, out in the Atlantic, some 2,000 miles away. So when you look on the satellite, you think, oh, it's just a lump of cloud. But this lump of cloud is going to develop and it's going to move and it's going to intensify. And by 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, it will be on over Southwest Island. So they're going to get it first. They're going to get the impacts first. Then that low centre will move northeasterly. It will end up going out into the North Sea at the end of the day. But it's the daytime, and this is the problem with this storm. It's a daytime event, and not just that. It's going to affect primarily, I'm going to say Northern Ireland. I'm looking at the chart just above me here. Northern Ireland, Wales, and England in the main. And the ice bars are very, very tight on its southern flank and the northwesterly flank as it moves through. So 60, 70, 80 mile an hour gusts in general, and that's just a general sort of picture. The coast of Wales, maybe southwest England, could well see 100 mile an hour gusts, which is quite exceptional.
I mean, storms of this magnitude seem to be becoming a feature of winter these days. What do you think is causing it? Do we need to use the two words climate change?
Yeah, I knew you were going to come up with that one. Look, storms are storms. We've had them for a long time, and we'll continue to have them. The number of them, I don't know. I think we're probably reaching at just above our ratio for what you might call a class winter. In other words, we would normally see 3, 4, 5 storms. It's about where it would be. The problem with these things, it's not so much the number of them and whether they happen or not. It's what happens on top. In other words, how much more do you get out of when you add in a little bit of climate change? Do we get to a certain point where they become so severe that it really is a danger to life, which this one is? And we're actually saying to people, if you don't need to travel tomorrow, then don't. We're even saying if schools need to close, think they should close, it might be a wise decision. Business is the same. Better to be safe than sorry, because this is really going to ravage the country through the daytime. It's going to be very, very difficult on the travel, on the roads and rail and obviously the ferries and things like that are probably not going to operate.
Saw from those spectacular photographs just now, I mean, the waves on the coast become absolutely enormous, don't they? What do you have to say to people to persuade them not to be thrill seekers, to go and walk their dogs on the beaches, to go and try and take selfies in front of those waves? Because it always ends in tragedy somewhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? They put themselves in harm's way, and we're absolutely saying the opposite. Take yourself out of harm's way. Staying in is probably the best policy. It's one of those things. You don't like people to be prevented. But the problem with this is we put warnings out, such as the amber, and we've got a red watch, as I mentioned. They'll take that warning and then they'll put it in the back pocket and carry on as usual. Well, it's not carrying as usual. There will be things flying around tomorrow, objects, trees falling, that type of thing. So if you go walking in woods or forests and things like this, which I often do, but I won't be doing that tomorrow, I can assure you. So all we're going to do is keep stressing the dangers that are going to be brought about by this particular storm. And as I say, it will go out of the way. You have to be patient about these things. But by Saturday, even later in the day on Friday, or the evening, I should say, it should be moving away and things will calm down a little bit into the weekend.
Thank you very much indeed for that update. Everybody stay safe with what's to come. You've got your warning there. Other stories this Thursday morning, this is what we've got for you. Don't be lulled into a false sense of security. The Foreign Secretary warns over Moscow's claims it's drawing back from the borders of Ukraine.
Liz Truss says Russia could drag out the crisis over Ukraine for weeks or even months, so she's going to visit Ukraine this week, where she's going to warn Moscow that invasion will lead to severe economic sanctions.
Almost 15 million people were left waiting for a post over the Christmas period, according to the Citizens Advice Bureau. Research shows that includes 2.5 million who missed important documents, health appointments, or were unable to pay a fine or bills.
More than half of people surveyed went a week without letters. People who catch COVID-19 have a 60% higher risk of suffering depression, a study in the United States suggests. Experts tracked almost 154,000 people over a year and found they also had an increased chance of struggling with substance use and sleep problems.
A coalition of 18 charities supporting more than 500,000 people with a weakened immune system are calling for COVID testing to remain free.
There's speculation that the government's Living with COVID strategy for England, published on Monday, will scrap the measure.
Well, there we are, and the time is 11 minutes past 6 on this Thursday morning. So we welcome Angela Rippon onto the programme today while Isabel takes some time off. And the thing is, though, I was thinking, of course, for Angela, this is not the first time in your very long career that breakfast television has been a part of it.
No, I was one of what people may remember as the famous five. Five of us who started at what was actually the very first breakfast programme on commercial television.
Yes.
There we are. There's Robert Key, there's me, there's David Frost, there's Anna Ford, and Michael Parkinson. And we were the originals for TVAM.
Yeah, because before that, the UK hadn't got breakfast television.
No.
So what was it like being, pioneering there right in the forefront? The year?
1982.
Yeah.
Yes, it was quite a long time ago. And of course, what happened was the BBC decided that they would start a breakfast programme too, and they actually beat us to being on air by a couple of months, which was really quite annoying.
And the thing is, people say you get up in the morning and you get used to it. My view is, no, you don't get used to it.
Can I just say to all of Isabel's fans who are thinking, what the heck's that woman doing sitting in her chair? Well, I'm only here for the day, and Isabel is actually taking a well-deserved extra day off. She's going to have a nice long weekend so she can have some quality time with her children and her family. She'll be back Monday, so don't worry.
OK, let's get back to business now. And America has accused Russia of adding 7,000 more troops to Ukraine's border, despite claims from President Putin of a withdrawal in troop numbers.
For more on this, Ewan Grant, the former law enforcement intelligence analyst for ex-Soviet states, joins us now.
Ewan, good morning to you. What do you make of where we're at? I mean, it's been a busy week, but has much changed?
Yes, I think it has. I think it's intensified, and I think the point you've just made is spot on. These movements are the kind of things the US can monitor, and as you said earlier, you reported earlier, American surveillance planes or maybe drones have been over the northern borders where it's easier to spot.
But are we? Can I just ask, because they were talking about withdrawing troops and sending them back to their barracks. I mean, is this just moving those troops around, or are these 7,000 new troops that are coming in?
New. The troops, the concentration and the worries that I've been hearing from informed insiders is that we should be more concerned about the north and only then the south, i.e. Crimea, and only thirdly, directly in the east.
And strategically, Ewan, why the north? Why is there a concentration, or why is there seen to be a vulnerability in the north?
Because the Ukrainian forces aren't in the north.
Mm-hmm.
Go for the soft spot.
Right.
They're in the Donbass.
Right. So, if Putin and Russia were to move, and that was their entry point, what would well, if Ukraine aren't there, who is going to be there? Who's going to stop them? Nobody?
More or less, yeah.
Yeah.
It is political and psychological then. Put the pressure on rather than necessarily kinetic pressure.
Well, we know that NATO can't put boots on the ground. We can't. So what role does NATO have to play in all of this? Are we just going to leave the Ukrainians to the Russians and they've just got to get on with it themselves?
Well, how long's a piece of string? If Russia really decides to push rather than shove, we can only help Ukraine in the long term. We can't really help her now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, the British role in all of this, I mean, is it just, there in terms of moral support, or do you think we will end up being committed more than we are at the moment?
We'll be committed more because, frankly, we are still a backbone of European NATO. We are widely respected in Eastern Europe, and indeed, although they don't quite say it so much in the West, it's a complex one, NATO and the EU. But we won't be getting involved unless, of course, you have an accident, a Gulf of Tonkin, be it in the air or at sea. We won't be getting directly involved, but we will be there for the long term and after this cools down.
So the fact you've pointed out this movement of troops, this build-up of troops in the north and this vulnerability in the north, is an invasion likely? Is it, well, it's certainly possible. Is it probable?
A few weeks ago, interviewed by Alistair Stewart here, I said the chance is 55-45. I'd now go to 45-55, which I suppose means possible rather than probable. But I would be worried about a false flag and a Russian initiative in the Donbass to either get them to break away or put further pressure. The false flag is what really worries me.
When you're talking about the false flag, what you mean is those who are very pro-Russian who are in the east of the country, aren't they? Are you worried that actually, if that does happen, not only would there be a Russian invasion, but that you might actually have civil war within Ukraine itself, with that part of the country supporting the Russians and the rest wanting to maintain their independence?
Well, to an extent, that's partly already happening, isn't it? Because you've got the community in the Donbass which supports Russia, which of course is by no means all of them. I don't think it would actually spread much beyond that, but that's not to say it could be exploited by one or two quislings. The Russians know who those are.
Yesterday was supposedly a wonderful day for the Ukrainians because Zelensky, their president, had this day of national unity. Was that a major show of bravado, do you think, or is there real fear on the streets of Ukraine at the moment?
I think it's a bit of both, but there is fear and concern, but equally the general trend over the last few years, and we haven't given this enough weight, is to coalesce feeling against Russia. It's not universal, but it's wider, with a few key gaps, not least in the Donbass, obviously, but also we need to watch Odessa, the key commercial port, the economic lifeline.
Okay. Ewan, thanks for your analysis. Ewan Grant is an intelligence analysis, and thank you for shedding a lot of light on that. Not at all. I'm going to be speaking to Ewan throughout the programme this morning. Thank you very much indeed. With the time at 18 minutes past 6, we will take a break, Angela and I, back after this all-important weather forecast.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Storm Dudley is now moving away, but in the next 24 hours, Storm Eunice will arrive, a more powerful storm, bringing widespread disruption and, in places, dangerous wind speeds. But this morning starts off with blustery conditions for many. However, a mixture of sunshine and, in the north, showers, those falling as snow over the higher parts of northern England and Scotland. Then further showers push into Wales and the southwest for a time. And away from the showers, there will be some brighter spells. The winds moderating through the day, coming down by the afternoon, but staying cold in the north. 5 or 6 Celsius for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England. 10 or 11 Celsius for Cardiff, London, Southampton. Then it's calmer for a time on Thursday evening, but Eunice rapidly deepening out in the Atlantic, bringing its strongest swathe of winds during the early hours of tonight across Wales, the southwest of England, and then spreading across much of the rest of the south of the UK through the day on Friday. Initially, a bout of wet weather arrives by midnight. That pushes north. It mixes with cold air to bring some significant and disruptive snow to northern England, central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, blizzards over the hills, drifting of snow as well. But the winds are really picking up by this stage. Dawn on Friday across the southern half of the UK. Widespread 60 to 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts from northern England southwards, and in some exposed spots 80 miles an hour, and peaking around the coasts of West Wales, the Bristol Channel, southwest England at 90, perhaps as much as 100 miles an hour. Dangerous wind speeds, dangerous conditions around coasts, and likely disruption in many places, as well as damage to structures. It stays cold in the north, with the snow leading to potential issues across especially the higher ground of northern England, central and southern Scotland, but it's milder further south, with some sunshine replacing the earlier rain by the afternoon.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Folks, a very good morning to you. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with not Eamonn and Isabel, but Eamonn and Angela this morning for one day only.
Indeed. Conservative MP Andrew Rossendale has told GB News the Queen deserves a fantastic celebration in her Platinum Jubilee year and does not need to be upset by the Duke of York's legal worries.
Well, speaking exclusively to Gloria Del Piero from GB News, he said that the legal battle between the Duke and Virginia Giuffre was a private matter for the royal.
I think the royal family and the Queen, the monarchy, is above politics. We can disagree on political issues. We can have different religions, different backgrounds. Everything can divide us. The one thing that should never divide us is love of country. And the Queen has been a magnificent servant, not only of the United Kingdom, but of the Commonwealth. And I think that politics shouldn't be just about politicians. A political system, a constitution, you sometimes need someone above politics. And in this country, we have someone who's above all of it and does the job so well. And it's also a constitutional thing, because at the end of the day, if you have somebody that is neutral politically, they can bind the country together through times of crisis and difficult periods, but also people don't dislike them. I mean, I know huge numbers of people in all political parties, especially in the Labour Party, who are deeply patriotic and love the Queen. Not everybody is woke in the Labour Party, lots that aren't. Sadly, there are some that are. I know you're not, Gloria, but there are some that are. And I think it's very sad, because we can differ on, how much public spending and other environmental issues or whatever it might be. But the one thing I think should unite most people is love of country, and the Queen's sort of like the head of the British family. So I think the monarchy is a good thing.
And being such a proud monarchist as you are, the Prince Andrew affair must have been very difficult for anybody who believes in the royal family.
I don't know what's gone on there. Clearly it's very difficult and it's very upsetting for the Queen, especially in this year of the Queen's Jubilee. I want this year to be a wonderful year for the Queen. She deserves a fantastic celebration, and this is a distraction which the Queen didn't need. The country doesn't need it. So it is a private matter, really, for Prince Andrew to resolve, and I really hope it can be resolved very quickly, because I want to celebrate a wonderful year for the Queen as she reaches 70 years on the throne, and I think that's something we should be focusing on rather than issues such as the problems that Prince Andrew is facing.
And you can watch the whole of that interview on The Briefing with Gloria De Piero from midday. Did I get her name right? No.
You did.
Oh, right.
At the second attempt.
Good.
I mean, who am I to say to you whether you got pronounced? You're the woman who, at the BBC when you were, main newsreader there for so many years. You must have had, a pronunciation department?
Yes, we did. But you're my pronunciation department today, darling, because you know all of these.
Don't be relying on me. But it is funny the way, that you would think you would have had all of these departments within the BBC in those years, where now everything is, us on our phones.
I ring up the embassies and say, yes, if there's a difficult name, I say, how do you pronounce that? Anyhow, coming up, we're going to take a look through the front pages of the papers today with broadcaster Claire Muldoon and the journalist David Wooding. So don't go away.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Very good to see you again. It's fast approaching 6:30. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Eamonn and Angela.
Let's take a look at today's front pages. Claire, can we start with you? Because I think...
No.
Oh, what do we do now? Oh, we do that. I'm
pages,
sorry.
so
Well, there you are. You see, I'm the new girl here. It's a good job I've got you here, Poppet.
It is a good job.
Good
job.
Yeah, cracking.
The Express,
Where would we
first
be?
of all.
Right, let's start with the Express, which says that the Queen faces a new anguish. Scotland Yard is going to investigate an alleged offer of a knighthood in exchange for donations to Prince Charles's charity.
We move to the Mail. It says it's a bombshell for the royal family. Comes less than 24 hours after what it calls the abject humiliation of Prince Andrew.
Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is warning that Russia is ready to test the mettle of the West by dragging out the Ukraine crisis for months. She says we must not be dragged into a false sense of security over Putin's claims of troop withdrawals.
Here's the Independent. According to them, this morning, NATO is planning to deploy extra combat units to Central and Southeastern Europe to shore up the alliance.
Following moves by Scotland and Wales, England is to join the other nations in opening up the vaccine programme for children aged 5 to 11.
And we're going to be talking about that later in the programme today. But now going through the papers, we have got political editor for The Sun on Sunday, David Wooding, and broadcaster and journalist, we're very delighted to welcome Claire Muldoon.
And Claire, we're going to start with you, I think, with a story in the Times.
Times, front page of the Times. Angela, cash for honours inquiry deepens crisis for royals. On the backdrop of the money that's been paid to Geoffrey in America for Prince Andrew, we've now got Prince Charles, the succession to the throne, as we know, willing to assist police in another scandal, and the scandal, of course, being Michael Fawcett, Charles's former valet, who quit as chief executive of the Prince's Trust last year, Prince's Foundation, sorry. And this whole claim centres on the fact of a Saudi billionaire and his quest to receive a CBE honour, and apparently he paid £1.5 million for this honour. But we have to ask, this is a tip of the iceberg. This is the elite. This is going on. It's been going on. Remember Jonathan Aitken cast for questions? He was jailed for it. Don't let the buggers get you down. Am I surprised at this? No. Am I saddened? Yes, for the Queen. And I think perhaps as a country, it deeply saddens me to say, but maybe we have to move on once the Queen has passed her crown on to, do we actually need a monarchy in this country in terms of funding, in terms of everything else? That's the question I think we have to be asking.
We have to say, of course, that Prince Charles is saying that he was not aware of this, and it was Fawcett who was actually running the charity.
He was the agent for it, yes.
And you say the Queen doesn't need it. I don't know if you've seen the front page of The Sun today, and there are photographs of the Queen in lots of them. It's the first time I've seen the Queen looking really old, and I really feel sorry for her with all the stuff that's going on at the moment.
I do too.
I mean, it's a lovely picture of her, but, she looks like everybody's
granny. And she admitted that she's feeling frail in herself.
We'll just show it there because we didn't pick it up.
You didn't pick it up. Yeah, there it is. There she is.
Yeah.
First time I've seen her looking really, really quite troubled, actually.
Yes, it's a great shame for the Queen, because in the last 24 hours we've had the Prince Andrew having to pay £12 million, and there's still questions about how much Her Majesty is paying towards that in this this
do you know
lawsuit.
what? When that started, I thought, well, obviously he's paying it himself or his mother's paying it or whatever. And then as yesterday went on, the question started to rise, would this be out of the public purse? And then that began to irk me a bit.
Yes, absolutely.
Are we any clearer on that?
He has sold, or he is selling his chalet in Switzerland, I think.
But there's still a mortgage on that.
£18 million that's worth, but he hasn't sold it yet. So where's the money coming from? It's a good question, Eamonn, because if they're dipping into the public purse for this, then we have a right
They
to
can't.
know.
They can't. No, I mean, she's got an income from the Duchy of Lancaster, isn't it? She made £23 million last year, and we don't know that it is actually £12 million, do we? It might be less than that, but whatever it is, I think if there's a...
It's about £12 million, £10 million.
Whatever. Yeah.
But there's questions regarding, as David quite rightly said, is it coming from the public purse? And if it is, I'll be really, really, really angry.
Well, we'd want to know.
At least we'd want to know.
We'd want to know.
Yeah.
David, let's talk about Ukraine now. Western Union pressure on Putin with more troops. This is the Independent's take front page.
Yes, it's just... Well, it's not 24 hours. It was yesterday, early hours yesterday morning. We were told that the Russians were likely to invade. And, of course, here we are Thursday morning and it hasn't happened yet. But the NATO General Secretary, Jens Stoltenberg, is saying we're taking no chances, we're preparing for the worst. And that's been seen in more troops tanks, armoured vehicles. The Royal Navy's £1 billion warship destroyer HMS Diamond is going into the Black Sea. There'll be Apache gunship helicopters going. So it will crank up the pressure on Putin.
But I think it was interesting, that Liz Truss line, that they're going to be there for the long term. This is not just going to be over this week or in a couple of weeks or whatever. I mean, they could just set up camp around that Ukrainian border for the rest of the year.
Well, exactly. It's weeks or months that the Russians have got the capability to keep their troops there.
They've been there since last summer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, Putin, I keep saying this, is playing cat and mouse. The UK diplomats have been asked to remove themselves, return from the Ukraine. They're doing that, I think, to clear the space in the Ukraine so they can have a good view of what's going on, and also to show Putin that they're actually taking him seriously, because it's all about puffing his chest, rolling down his pride and making him feel good.
And making him look good at home.
And making him look good at home. That's it.
He's playing Russian roulette, really, isn't
well,
he? His form of it, anyway. David, what have you got from The Guardian for us?
Oh, The Guardian. Well, yes, this is a story about the green issues. The oil firms, believe it or not, spend a lot of money on still in fossil fuels. They're supposed to be rethinking their business model and becoming more green. And according to this report that's out in The Guardian, that Shell, BP, ExxonMobil, Chevron, they're 10% of the fossil fuel industry. They're using words in their reports like climate and low carbon and these sort of words, but they're not actually doing very much about it. So effectively, it's words, but no real action on climate change from these companies. They mention these green words such as climate change and low carbon and so forth 326 times in their material.
Yes.
It was only 22 last year.
But it's all talk.
All talk.
So what are we paying for? What are we paying these extra green taxes for?
Well, that's the big.
What are we getting? What are we getting for that?
Well, at the moment, what we're getting for it is low carbon emissions from this country, but that is just a tiny fraction of the world.
Listen, I'm sure around this table we all want to save the planet. We all want to do the right thing. But Claire, I'm just getting the feeling now's not the time. We can put it
to rest for a while, surely. We don't need to save the planet. We need to actually save people and save the economy and save education and save society. That's what we ought to be focusing on, and not, the empowered, the BPs, the Shells who don't pay tax in the UK, and yet our energy prices are soaring. We need to look to alternative methods you mentioned fracking a few weeks ago, and there's a coal mine actually in Cumbria that could actually resurrect coal at the moment from the coal face, and we could use that. Yes, I know it's a dirty fuel. Yes, I know it's a fossil fuel, but in the interim, when against everything else, could we not look to that? And also,
here's what I say about fracking. You could wipe out the debt that COVID cost with us. You could take care of the whole social care issue and problem that we can't fund. You could pay off whatever the NHS owes.
Do you know why?
Is it not a no-brainer?
Well, the reason why they're not doing it, and they're actually going to fill in a quarry or whatever it is in Blackpool, actually, for the fracking site, there is this risk of seismic tremors, seismic shift of the tectonic plates. It's never been proved.
It's never been proved.
It's never been proved.
Actually, come on. We're all grown up. We've all done geography at school and geology and various things as well. Are you really telling me that an explosion underground can cause the tectonic plates to move? I just don't believe it. It just doesn't stack up with me.
Well, I think by you saying that, it's going to let off a tectonic plate in Twitter, and you'll have people going off at GBNews because you've said that.
Yeah, look, I can think.
So polarising is fracking.
Yes, but are you going to say it's going to open up something the size of the Grand Canyon, a bit of an explosion underground?
I'm not saying anything, Eamonn.
That's what I'm saying. It just doesn't, I agree with that, just doesn't stack up to me.
It's fear of the unknown in this country, that's what it is. And
the US have used it for years, haven't they, David?
Well, yes, they've done it. It's just...
And their fuel prices are 6 times less than ours.
And Eamonn's right, we all want to save the planet, but actually compared with the sort of output that China has got with the 20 30 coal-fired power stations that it's building every year. It's minuscule.
Do you know what all these stories have in common? COP26, and nothing has been spoken about that since.
Well, I don't think they're going to backtrack on COP26 as well, but I do think, Claire, something that gets really on my goat is plastic, single-use plastic. And if governments, David, were really serious about this, they would say, right, single-use plastic, we're going to give you 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then it ain't going to exist, companies, and that's it. But nobody ever does. Nobody ever does. All talk, no action. Let's go to the Financial Times front page. No, it's not the Financial Times, David. I'm looking for you.
Claire.
It's Claire. No, David hasn't spoken. No. She's spoken far too much. We've had enough of her.
Visas.
David, what have you got for us?
Visas.
Next?
We can talk about visas if you want.
Right.
Yeah, there's the UK is this is in the on the BBC website, strangely enough. But I've read it in a couple of papers in the Daily Mail and a couple of others that Britain is to scrap these golden visa schemes. These they're called investor visas, where people can come invest in this country and then they get fast-tracked into British citizenship. Instead of it being they can get it down to 5 years or 2 years, depending on how many millions they invest. They have, in fact, been called dirty money visas. And, hey, it's linked to Russia again. All the Russian oligarchs coming in here, investing money and getting British citizenship. And, of course, people are looking at this a little bit more closely.
Look, can I just say, we're not the only people to do this. No. This happens in Portugal. You buy yourself a big villa in Portugal, whatever, and you open up a bank account there, you will get citizenship. I think it happens in Spain and it happens in Greece as well. So it's not just unique to us.
No. But what's different is that we are now going to crack down on that. So they're going to make it a bit more difficult, it seems, according to noises coming out of the Home Office.
Will they miss all that money when it's gone?
Probably, yes. We need investment in jobs and services in this country, but there is more caution about China and Russia these days. There are a lot of backbench MPs and members of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee saying, look, we've got to be a bit more careful about where the money's coming from and who's behind it.
Eamonn, as you're taking charge of the programme, is it all right if I now ask Claire if she can do her newspaper?
Just give your choice which one you'd like. Which one you'd like. There's so many there, so many to choose.
Well, can we just put a poll out? There's one about Nicola Sturgeon. Which one do you think I'm going to take?
Nicola Sturgeon.
Yes,
go on with your accent. Come on.
Absolutely. So Tom Harris, who used to be an MP, a Labour MP in Glasgow South, has a piece in the Mail today. Sturgeon shamelessly exploited COVID in her war for independence. Oh, the irony, says he. After her militant curbs, the Scots fared worse than us. And indeed, that is a story, that's a letter, that's a sentence. The Scots will fare worse than England from her if they do get independence.
I'll just ask you a question. When it is claimed she shamelessly exploited COVID in the war for independence, how does that add up?
Because she came out when Boris last July said we're going to have Freedom Day. We're going to take, move out of stage 2 restrictions. She was saying, well, it's a bit too early for that then, isn't it? We can't do that. What's he doing that for? Well, the Prime Minister, your boss, is doing that because it's the right thing to do. She's kept my family, my friends still in Scotland, still under terrible duress. She's made them wear masks. The other week she wanted to saw off 2 inches off doors, indoors of schools because of this, against the advice from the Scottish Fire Brigade to say that actually those doors were there for safety measures in case fires went off in the classroom.
Has she not saved the NHS in Scotland as a result?
No, she's not saved the NHS in Scotland as a result because the death toll in Scotland is actually higher per capita than here.
OK. We'll leave it there. Thank you, Claire. Thank you very much. Points well made, David. Thank you indeed.
You will.
Yes, we will.
18 minutes now before 7 o'clock. A mother is taking the Environment Agency to the European Court of Human Rights. This is a row over landfill near her home in Newcastle under Lyme in Staffordshire. Becky Curry believes toxic fumes from the site are limiting her 6-year-old son's life. She's one of hundreds of residents in the town who have been protesting over the smell and the fumes from Wally's Quarry Limited, which they believe is affecting their physical and mental health.
And our reporter, Balvinda Sidhu, is reporting.
Struggling to sleep is 6-year-old Matthew Richards. He cries out in the night, "Please call the smell, I can't breathe." His mum Becky says he's talking about the fumes from a landfill site near their home in Newcastle under Lyme. She says the smell has made their lives unbearable.
Absolutely horrendous. That's what we're going through, and it isn't just me. You know, there's thousands of parents worried about the kids.
Matthew had chronic lung disease as a baby, and his mum believes the landfill site has made his condition worse.
He was 6 on Friday. What's he going to be like when he's 16? You know, and professionals have said his life is going to be made shorter. They're forcing me out now. I've got to go. Got to take Matthew away from it now. Got no choice, really.
Becky is now taking the Environment Agency to the European Court of Human Rights.
I am very, very angry with the EA. Really am. Because they're supposed to be protecting us.
90 children from this primary school have written to their local MP and the Environment Agency about the smell.
It smells like rotten eggs. And then when you're learning and you're concentrating, all you can smell is the smell surrounding you. And it kind of puts you off your work. It makes me feel a bit sad because we're the only ones really experiencing this.
It smells like everyone else has said. It smells quite rotten eggy, and it also smells of sulphur.
It took a long time for the smell to improve. It has done recently, but it is something that still happens on a fortnightly basis, and it's impacting their education.
Hundreds of people have complained and protested about the smell, many reporting that it causes nosebleeds, headaches and itchy eyes. The local GP is calling it a public health crisis.
The Environment Agency splits hairs because it says, oh, nobody's actually dying of it. I think in Matthew's case, the consultants have said it's absolutely affecting his anticipated life. But for it, what it is it is really affecting the quality of life of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. Yes, it isn't completely. It may not actually kill them today, tonight, but it's really seriously affecting their quality of life.
In a statement, the Environment Agency says it wants Wally's Quarry to make changes to the way it runs, and it's working with the authorities to bring emissions of hydrogen sulfide under control. It's also investigating alleged illegal waste activities at sites run by Wally's Quarry Limited and Red Industries Limited. Meanwhile, Wally's Quarry Limited have said an independent report found the site does not pose an unacceptable risk to health, and the odour is typical of a non-hazardous waste landfill site, and that monitoring by the Environment Agency shows emission levels continue to reduce. But Becky says that's not good enough, and the fight for fresh air will continue for as long as it takes. Balvinder Sidhu for GB News.
Could you imagine absolutely living beside something like that, and the fumes and the smell and the worry, just not knowing where it's emanating from or what's behind it all?
Horrible.
If you've got a story to tell, tweet us at GB News. Children aged between 5 and 11 are to be offered a COVID vaccine in England and Northern Ireland. Health experts say it may reduce risks children could face in a possible future wave or another COVID variant.
Well, the programme's going to be rolled out in April, and for reaction to this, Dr. Mo Kaki joins us now. Good morning. Is this the right decision? Why are we doing it?
I think it is. I think it's a good proactive step, really, because we know that this current variant, the Omicron variant, has been kind to us in some ways, but we don't know what the future holds. And so this is really about future-proofing children and giving parents the option to have that future-proofing.
Yeah. Does that mean then that they just have the 3 injections that most people have had now? Or are they going to have even more than that for the rest of their lives?
At the moment, the Joint Commission on Vaccination and Immunisation have said is that this will be a one-off. And it will be 2 vaccinations, and it will be a third of the dose of an adult. So 2 vaccinations, one 12-week apart, and then we'll see how things go, really. The key point is to try to bolster the immunity of children. The great thing about the pandemic has been that, if you can find a silver lining, has been that children haven't been so badly affected. So this is really about protecting their future.
So talking about the future, I mean, there'll be future variants, of course, as well.
Yeah.
So what are we actually protecting them against? Can you actually say, well, you're protecting them against COVID-19, you're protecting them against Omicron, or you're protecting them against all of those?
Well, all of those are current variants. The key question is, are future variants going to be more dangerous? And the data has shown that if 1 million children are vaccinated and there's a variant that's more dangerous, like the ones we've seen in the past, you're looking at potentially 98 reductions in hospitalizations, which is a fair amount of children, really. Of course, if it's something like the Omicron variant, which hasn't been so dangerous, we're looking at reducing the hospitalizations of children to 17. So not huge numbers, but again, we just don't know what the future holds. And I think that's been the story of the pandemic, and that's why this has been issued at this time.
And equally, schools have been a breeding ground for this, haven't they? The children themselves may not necessarily have been ill with it, but they have been taking the virus home and passing it on, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one of the key elements of it. We know that the fact that children are together, they are seeing themselves, and we know that childcare has been such a challenge during this whole pandemic, that schools being open is so important. That actually, if we can reduce that transmission, if we have that ability to support children, it's brilliant, and families, and reduce the vaccination requirement, etc.
Doctor, you know, the word vaccination is very emotive with so many people, particularly when it comes to children. And, you know, I remember when my children were young, there was the whole MMR controversy in the 90s, and parents were frightened. They're absolutely frightened about this.
Yeah.
What would you say to reassure anyone watching today, or anybody who's just so anti this? Are we getting data yet which is saying these are or are not the side effects of vaccines? Or is it building enough that we can actually, with authority, say they do work, they do not cause this, they do cause that?
Yes, I mean, we have now vaccinated millions and millions of people, and all of that research has demonstrated that there aren't that many long-term side effects that we've found. There are very few, in fact, that anyone has been able to determine. I think, particularly in this case with children, what's been really reassuring is that 8 million children in the US have already had this vaccination. And if you had, or if you're a parent of someone who's had a vulnerable condition, a child who's ill, you'll have already had this vaccination for the children. So actually, we're now looking at children who are not vulnerable, who are not potentially ill, but actually looking at protecting them in the future. And there's so much evidence to demonstrate that this has been protective. I think it's only positive news, really.
So the question I suppose we're going to say to you at home today is, should we be offering vaccines to children? And of course, I think it's not even so much the COVID contamination, it's the effects of long COVID as well, and this would be protecting against that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the key elements of the vaccination. I think that the real dilemma here in the whole pandemic has been, regarding vaccination, has been, well, who's going to get long COVID and who's not?
Yeah.
And that's the challenge that we can't understand. There's no determinant. You could be completely healthy, 20-year-old male, and have no issues and get long COVID, or you could just get a slight sniffle and have COVID.
And long COVID is a serious condition in itself now, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And as you guys said earlier in the programme, 60% of people who have COVID have developed depression, have developed anxiety. It's really affected our mental health. So that, in combined with long COVID, which is debilitating and really affects us.
It's all very complex. And on that subject, let's join Sammy McFarland now. Sammy is the CEO and founder of the charity Long COVID Kids. So basically, Sammy, tell us, I mean, you heard us touching upon the whole subject of long COVID there. Why and how should we be worried about this?
So we've been raising awareness of long COVID in children since October 2020. My daughter developed long COVID in March 2020. We had, both of us had mild COVID infection. We recovered initially, and then 5 to 6 weeks later developed long COVID. At the time, long COVID didn't even have a name, and there was nowhere to turn to, no information. And I was told that if my daughter tried harder and spent more time with her friends, she would get better, that she was mimicking my symptoms. And 2 years on, we now have the ONS stating that there's 117,000 children living with long COVID. And we know that many of the children from the first wave are still not recovered. These are life-changing, chronic and disabling symptoms for many children that impact their everyday life.
That's probably a story that not too many people are aware of, unless as a family you are actually involved in a situation like that. So what sort of reaction are you getting, not just from families, but from the children, when you suggest that they have one of these jabs?
So the vaccine wasn't available for my child, and I now have a child that had underlying conditions who is now living a very limited life. She describes her life as a half-life. And families in our group are extremely pleased to be able to have the choice of the vaccine. And I think that's really what this is about. It's about there hasn't been choice to protect children, and now there is a choice, and we welcome that.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And Mo, thank you also very much. Can I just say that Eamonn is very envious of your hair?
Yes. He's very what?
Envious of his hair.
This is
very envious. I mean, that's unnaturally thick hair.
Yes, yeah. Just took me about 5 hours in the morning. That's it. Yeah.
Very good, Mo. Thank you very much indeed.
Coming up in the next hour, we are going to be bringing you more of the stories that really do matter to you, from the storms that are hitting the UK to the storm that's brewing around the Ukraine. Here is the weather.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Storm Dudley is now moving away, but in the next 24 hours, Storm Eunice will arrive, a more powerful storm, bringing widespread disruption and, in places, dangerous wind speeds. But this morning starts off with blustery conditions for many. However, a mixture of sunshine and, in the north, showers, those falling as snow over the higher parts of northern England and Scotland. Then further showers push into Wales and the southwest for a time. And away from the showers, there will be some brighter spells. The winds moderating through the day, coming down by the afternoon, but staying cold in the north. 5 or 6 Celsius for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England. 10 or 11 Celsius for Cardiff, London, Southampton. Then it's calmer for a time on Thursday evening, but Eunice rapidly deepening out in the Atlantic, bringing its strongest swathe of winds during the early hours of tonight across Wales, the southwest of England, and then spreading across much of the rest of the south of the UK through the day on Friday. Initially, a bout of wet weather arrives by midnight. That pushes north. It mixes with cold air to bring some significant and disruptive snow to northern England, central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, blizzards over the hills, drifting of snow as well. But the winds are really picking up by this stage. Dawn on Friday across the southern half of the UK. Widespread 60 to 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts from northern England southwards, and in some exposed spots 80 miles an hour, and peaking around the coasts of West Wales, the Bristol Channel, southwest England at 90, perhaps as much as 100 miles an hour. Dangerous wind speeds, dangerous conditions around coasts, and likely disruption in many places, as well as damage to structures. It stays cold in the north, with the snow leading to potential issues across especially the higher ground of northern England, central and southern Scotland, but it's milder further south, with some sunshine replacing the earlier rain by the afternoon.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis, and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here. Joe Biden walking out. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
An amber danger to life warning has been issued as 100-mile-per-hour winds blast Britain. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 17th of February, and this is Breakfast on GB News with me, Angela Rippon, and Eamonn Holmes.
Yeah, we're here for one day only, live on your TV and your radio, on YouTube, where people are watching in their thousands, I would say hundreds of thousands, because the broadcasting and news legend that is Miss Angela Rippon.
I'm only going to be here for one day, but you're going to be here a lot longer, eh?
A lot longer. Isabel's on a day off, so wherever you are, make sure to take us with you. You can do that. And leading the news this morning.
The Met Office has issued an amber danger to life warning after Storm Dudley disrupted transport and left thousands without power. The UK is now bracing for Storm Eunice, which is expected to blast the UK with blizzards and 100-mile-an-hour gales.
It's been reported that Russian troops are still arriving at the Ukrainian border despite President Putin's claims of a partial withdrawal of Russian forces.
The Metropolitan Police are going to be investigating Prince Charles's charity over allegations that it offered a Saudi national cash for honours.
And it's Random Acts of Kindness Day, so let us know your stories of acts of kindness. You can join in with that. You can let us know at GB News, GBViews at gbnews.uk. Get in touch because it could change someone's day.
And people are generally very kind, I think.
Do you really think people are genuinely very kind?
There are some people who aren't, but on the whole, I think people... Yes, we shouldn't lump everybody together and say people aren't very nice. No, I think most people are nice.
And it makes a difference if someone does do something for you. Like be it a... You know what I love? I love going into a car park and you get out of your car and someone says, I've still got time on that ticket, would you like it?
Yes.
Small thing,
oh,
but
yeah.
it's just...
I've done that to people before.
Nice.
Why not?
Yeah. Can you ever remember an act of kindness? Or...
I do. I remember pulling up to park my car somewhere and hadn't realised that it was a no-go area. And just as I was about to leave it, a gentleman walked up to me and said, I wouldn't put your car there if I were you, Angela, because the wardens around here are a bit sharp. And I said, oh, thank you very much indeed. And it was Jimmy Choo, the shoe man.
Jimmy Choo shoes.
And I wasn't even wearing Jimmy Choo shoes. And he still was prepared to talk to me.
It stopped your car being towed away.
It stopped my car being towed away. So, Jimmy, if you're watching, thank you so much for that.
Leading the news this morning, we want to talk about the storms. One's come in, one's due tomorrow. The Met Office has now issued an amber danger to life warning. Thousands of homes in the northeast of England without power, trains services cut off after the one called Storm Dudley hit last night.
However, days of extreme weather still lie ahead with a second storm. It's Storm Eunice this time, which is set to hit southern Scotland and other parts of England. And our reporter Rachel Sweeney has spoken to people who are facing the storm, whilst also recovering from the devastating weather that they had back in November.
Storm Eunice will be the 5th storm to rip through the northeast of England in 4 months. Winds of up to 90 miles per hour destroyed parts of the region before Christmas, with clean-up operations still going on in parts of Northumberland. Storm Eunice is predicted to cause more power cuts, more property damage and more travel disruption. With some parts of the northeast of England still recovering from the effects of Storm Arwen that hit the region back in November, some people have said that it's going to be very difficult to even contemplate another storm hitting the region and also the recovery effort that will follow.
Oh, it's been terrible, like frightening, because even like the trees in my garden, they were like fell over on my fence, and it's like you go to bed and you don't know what you're going to wake up to.
Not just people losing roof tiles, people not being able to get out of the house. My mother-in-law's coming up 92. She can't get out at all with the weather the way it's been. The litter from everybody's bins being blown over. I came down to the beach this morning and literally it was horrific.
I would definitely say anyone living coastal, especially old people that rely on public transport. A lot of the public transport's just been very hit and miss for people when it comes to getting to work or just even out the house.
The northeast people rally together and help each other, which is really good. But I definitely think we should probably have more support from the government.
I think for older people, going out of doors, feeling unsteady on the feet in strong winds and heavy rains, pretty scary, really.
Hundreds of thousands of homes have been without power during storms. Northern Power Grid has been heavily criticised for its response to Storm Arwen because some people were still relying on generators weeks after the storm hit. Storms Dudley and Eunice are hitting the northeast one after the other, and Northern Power Grid say they're expecting disruption. In a statement, they said, "We are closely tracking the weather and have ensured that our resources are in place to respond if the forecasted back-to-back storms impact our network." Our network control engineers have capability to restore power supplies remotely, switching electricity through alternative routes on our network wherever possible to get customers back on supply. In parallel, our frontline workforce will be deployed to carry out local switching and repairs to restore power as safely and quickly as the conditions allow. People across the region are reminded to only travel if necessary, avoid coastal areas during storms and to take extra care. Rachel Sweeney, GB News.
And we're able to speak to Rachel Sweeney right now, who is at Durham. Good morning to you, Rachel. Are people back online today at the moment, or are they still without power? And presumably you're building up for the next storm.
Yes, good morning, Eamonn and Angela. Well, 14,000 people were without power during Storm Dudley. Northern Power Grid said that they managed to restore power to 10,000 homes during the night, but there are still, what I counted half an hour ago, 620 homes without power in their patch, which is the northeast of England. Now, where I am now is Meadowfield in Durham, and the surrounding postcodes to this field is the place that's been hit the hardest. There are 280 homes still without power there. What also is a problem this morning is transport, and definitely for commuters. So LNER said that they're expecting significant disruption, and ahead of Storm Eunice, they've said to not travel, do not travel between King's Cross, York and Leeds tomorrow. They really want you to avoid that. Wind has also damaged a wall and overhead power cables, which is causing huge disruption on the Tyne and Wear metro line. Do check before you travel there. And also we've had loads of road closures through the night. Most of them are back on track now, but the Highways Agency is warning people with high-sided vehicles. I'll be monitoring the situation throughout the morning, and with my hand warmer and my clipboard, I will keep you up to date.
Please do that. Keep your feet well anchored there as well, Rachel. Thanks very much indeed. This is Phil Morris. Let's speak to Phil. He's a weather expert on all of this. Rachel reporting on Storm Dudley, which has come in and now gone. What about this one, Eunice? When is it expected to strike and where?
Eunice is going to come tomorrow morning, and she's going to be one of the most
important and powerful storm we've had for many years. Now, she's developing in the middle of the Atlantic at the moment, and she's caught herself upon the jet stream, and she's shooting across the Atlantic many miles an hour, and she's going to be with us tomorrow morning. Now, Eunice is much further south than Dudley has been, and Eunice is very, very powerful indeed. Now, tomorrow, this could be the most powerful storm we've had for 32 years since the Burnsday storm in 1990, which did a tremendous amount of damage. And it's that rare a storm. This storm is going to affect southern England and Wales and northern England up winds up to 90 to 100 miles an hour. Even where I live in the Midlands, we could have winds up to 80 miles an hour. That's almost unheard of. The strength of the wind, you're only talking about 4 or 5 gales in the last 100 years have been this strong. And of course, all the problems that's going to cause. She's going to arrive tomorrow at dawn. She's going to cross, looks like at the moment, Liverpool Bay to Yorkshire. South of that line, exceptionally strong winds, up to 100 miles an hour in some places, generally 50, 60, with gusts to 70. Eamonn, these are incredibly strong winds. The area it's going to receive them and the really big population tomorrow. So we really have to watch out.
Right, from dawn, you say there, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I know extremes of 100, but even, you know, stuff at 60, 50 miles an hour, enough to cause a lot of damage and a risk to human life there. But you were saying that it could come as far as southern England. Where do you mean by that? I'm just trying to get an idea. We're talking about Scotland, we're talking about the north of England. You say it could come in over Liverpool Bay. Then how far will everybody be affected, basically, to some degree?
Everyone's going to be affected, Eamonn. Now, the centre of the low is going to cross Liverpool Bay, it looks like, in the morning, going across to Yorkshire. Everywhere south of that line will have exceptionally strong winds. I say in the Midlands and right down to the south, winds up to 80 miles an hour. Above that line, we're going to have some snow falling, because it's going to be very, very cold air, and there'll be some snow falling above that line. So it's going to be really exceptional indeed.
I would imagine then, if as we get further south and you get to places like Dorset, Somerset, Devon, Cornwall, they're going to get really, really heavy seas as well, aren't they, with these winds coming in?
Absolutely, Angela. We're going to have mountainous seas in the southern England tomorrow. If you're talking about winds of 90 to 100 miles an hour, going on a boat tomorrow will not be advisable. The winds could be 10 metres high, the waves, incredible seas. I'm trying to get across the point that Eunice is a much more powerful storm than Dudley is going to be. One of the storms of the century. In where I live in the Midlands, we had one in January 76 that winds had 100 miles an hour. That's going to be very much like tomorrow, and not unlike the great storm of 87, but affecting a wider area, not quite as intense as that. But we're talking about one of the top 5 gales of the century if this comes off. So really trying to get to the point to people, do not go out tomorrow. Stay in, ride out the storm. It's one of those weather systems where I think, yes, we've got to change our plans. We need to keep safe. We need to keep indoors. This storm is really dangerous.
You're painting a really, really dramatic picture there.
Well, if it is one of the storms of the century,
exactly,
there's no dodging it. And I think, Phil, I'm glad you're painting that picture, because so often we get forecasts without the urgency attached to it, because, you know, driving's going to be a problem, travelling by train's going to be a problem, falling trees, as you can see there, absolutely horrendous. Seas that we've talked about, airplane trips as well. I mean, there'll be a lot of disruption to airline timetables. And, you know, for one day only, because you're talking about coming in at dawn tomorrow, how long will it hang around for? I mean, is this basically you saying to people, stay in tomorrow and tomorrow night, or will this last the weekend?
She's going to come in, say, dawn tomorrow across Ireland. By lunchtime, the centre of the low is going to be based over probably Lancashire, Yorkshire, and in the afternoon it's going to move out into the North Sea. So we're talking about during the day. That's another problem, Eamonn, is that the strongest of the winds are going to occur in the middle of the day. Now, regrettably, when the Burnsday storm came on a very similar timetable in 1990, 50 people were killed by the storm, by flying debris, trees. So, as I say, people really got to keep out of the way of this storm. lots of dangers of flying debris. It's a working day. A lot of children are still at school. I am very concerned as an amateur meteorologist and a weather enthusiast, as all my professional colleagues, about the power and strength of this storm. And the people have really got to get into their heads that this is really different and it could cause a lot of trouble and a lot of problem, and to try and keep her out of its way. Sometimes, as you say, you get forecasts of whether it's going to happen in a couple of weeks' time. This is happening tomorrow. Met Office forecasts are already amber, Eamonn. They could well today go red. When they get pinned down the actual track of this storm, where it's going to go, warnings could go to red, which is a danger to life. What this storm can actually bring. So I can't underestimate it enough. Keep out of its way.
We get the message, Phil, loud and clear. We've got your message.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. And, you know, I'll certainly act on that. I was due to go out tomorrow, and I don't think I'll bother now.
Strong message there. You couldn't get it more clear, could you? Stay at home. It's going to be a big one.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever, during a storm, heard or seen a tree fall? I ask you because I have. And it's the scariest thing.
It's the noise. It's like an explosion, isn't it? Yeah, it's like a bomb going off.
The only other time I heard a noise similar was watching an iceberg crack in the Arctic, and which was a noise I'd never heard before. But a tree cracking during a storm, it's the noise.
And it's sad, because the tree is probably, if it makes that amount of noise, very old.
Very old, like us, Angela.
I know,
Like
I know.
We could be, if we were in a forest now,
I know. We'd be a couple of bombs going off, wouldn't we?
Swaying from side to side. Look, stay safe.
That is so depressing.
Just get yourself something to watch on the telly and tuck yourself up
Stay
tomorrow.
tuned with us. But let's bring you up to date right now, shall we, with the latest news? Because the US has accused Russia of adding a further 7,000 troops near the Ukrainian border after claims from Russia that it was actually withdrawing personnel.
The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has warned that Europe shouldn't be lulled into a false sense of security and that the crisis could last for months.
Almost 15 million people were left waiting for post over the Christmas period. That's according to the Citizens Advice research, which shows that it includes 2.5 million people who missed important documents, health appointments, or were unable to pay fines or bills.
More than half of people surveyed went a week without letters. People who catch COVID-19 have a 60% higher risk of suffering depression. This is a study in the United States. Experts tracked almost 154,000 people over a year and found that they also had an increased change of struggling with substance use and sleep problems.
A coalition of 18 charities supporting more than 500,000 people with a weakened immune system are calling for COVID testing to remain free. There's speculation that the government's Living with COVID strategy for England that was published on Monday means that they're going to scrap the measure.
"16 minutes is the time, past 7.
Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
It does indeed. You're listening to the voice and you're seeing in studio the broadcasting and news legend that is Angela Rippon. Here for one day only, as Isabel is.
I'm a legend in my own lunchtime, darling. Let's press it.
But you are. Now listen. One of the most famous things that makes you that legend involved a news desk and you pushing that news desk away. And this was on a Morecambe and Wise Christmas show.
Yeah. It's not going to happen here, of course. This desk is going to stay very, very firm, so there's no risk of me having to get out and do a high kick. But no, it was it was a programme that was watched, I'm told, by something in excess of 23 million people, which is the kind of audience you're just never going to get on telly these days, which was wonderful. But I have to say, and everybody, I wish I had a penny even for every time someone has said, what were Morecambe and Wise like to work with? So let me tell you, GB viewers and listeners, they were wonderful. They were two of the most lovely, charming people that you could ever wish to work with, and except for Eamonn, of course. They were absolutely wonderful people, and they remained great friends, actually. I tell you what was the lovely thing about them. It was their show, and they were the stars, but they made you feel important. Yeah. And as I say, I remained friends with them literally until they died. And I'm glad to say that actually Eric's wife, Eric Morecambe's wife, Joan Morecambe, is still with us. She's the only one, as it were, of the quartet that's still here. She's well into her 90s, but she's a just lovely, lovely lady. And they were all just fabulous people to work with, and perfectionists.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, everything that they did that sounded as if it was, you know, very sort of off the cuff, no, it was absolutely timed to perfection.
For you to come from the formal news environment that you were in, and, you know, a household name on that front, and then to take part in this dance routine, there must have been a lot of pressure on you to get that right.
Well, funnily enough, they said to me, first of all, the boys would like you in their Christmas show, can you sing? And I said, not unless you want to clear the studio in 30 seconds. But I can dance a bit, because I studied classical ballet till I was 17. And their producer, who was Ernie Maxim, was himself a dancer and a choreographer. I mean, he was like Gene Kelly. He would say, "Shall I go and make the tea?" You know, he had all this kind of the shoulders and the arms, and he did the dance routine for me. And it wasn't pressure on my shoulders, because I loved doing it. It was the after effect when people suddenly thought, "Oh my God, she's got legs." I mean, that was the thing.
But it was the news bulletin that you were reading.
Yes.
What was it? Was it a weather bulletin?
No. If I can remember, it went something like, news has just come in from number 10 on the financial crisis. The Chancellor said, no, from number 11, the Chancellor says there may be trouble ahead, but while there's music and moonlight and love and romance, let's face the music and dance. Well, there you are. You see, there's the cue.
We
can't do it, no.
Time.
This desk doesn't do that.
Move.
No.
This desk doesn't move.
Foiled.
And I haven't got the talent, so we'll not be doing that. 90 minutes. Lovely having you here. And thank you, people who've made Angela feel so welcome today. Get in touch on Instagram and Twitter. I'm passing on those messages to you, because you don't do social media.
No, I don't.
No.
I ring people up and talk to them.
Yeah, sometimes that's probably wise. Anyway, the time now, 19 minutes past 7 o'clock on radio and television. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Angela.
The US has accused Russia of adding 7,000 more troops to Ukraine's border, despite claims from President Vladimir Putin that he's been actually drawing down in troop numbers.
Well, for the latest in Ukraine, journalist Mircea Barbu now joins us now from Kiev. Mircea, good morning to you. Could you please bring us up to date if you can, because we're all hanging on every word as to what goes on. Is there any movement? What are the developments? What are you gauging there?
So I've been in Kiev for more than 48 hours, a little bit over 48 hours now. I was previously in Odessa. Just trying to get a sense of what people are expecting. As you know, yesterday here was a big day, was the day that international media and everyone was focusing on what's going on in Ukraine. But at the same time, Ukrainians kind of had a attitude of, as you say in Britain, carry on, keep calm and carry on. So I spoke with a number of Ukrainians throughout the day. Most of them just chose to go to their jobs, and in the evening go see friends, go out for dinner, spend time with their families, kind of ignoring on one hand what's going on, or being confident, and in my opinion I would actually say overconfident in the fact that Russia is not going to make a move when everyone was expecting it to make that move in terms of a military aggression on Ukraine. I did speak with a young entrepreneur yesterday who was telling me that he was in digital marketing. And he said Russia has increased its cyber attacks. 2 days ago, 4 banks were experiencing problems. People could not withdraw money or use their bank apps, and the Ministry of Defense website was down. So we don't really see a military aggression in terms of tanks and troops moving across the border, but we do see, and at least people here in Kiev are saying, we do see an increase in content, online content aimed at fake news, aimed at tricking people into believing whatever narrative Russia wants to believe. And also we've been seeing these cyber attacks increase. Now, that's one thing. On the other hand, Ukrainians are calm. Like I said, they're very calm. They're very confident that if something will happen, they will somehow managed to resist. And that's because they say the Ukrainian army has gone a long way since 2014, since Crimea was illegally annexed. And now it has more troops. People are actually, the military, the young officers and military Ukrainians are more prepared, better trained, better equipped. Some of that equipment, as you know, coming from the EU, NATO countries and the international community supporting Ukraine at the moment.
Webster, thank you very much indeed for that and for giving us that.
We've got to leave it there,
yes.
but that's the picture from Kiev. Really appreciate that, Richard. Thank you very much.
But for more now on this, the former NATO commander and former Ministry of Defence Director General, Rear Admiral Chris Parry, joins us now. Very good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Angela.
Very good morning. I think it's very interesting to talk about the situation with the Navy at the moment, because as I understand it, Putin has put a number of pretty heavyweight naval vessels into the Black Sea, looking straight at that southern coastline of the Ukraine. How concerned are you that while we're all worried about what's happening on land, that actually he could be planning some kind of something coming from the sea, some kind of attack on Odessa, which is really so important to the commercial life of that country?
I'm one of those people that doesn't believe and has never believed there was going to be an invasion. I think this was a high-stakes game of poker by President Putin. You're absolutely right. There is an increased presence of amphibious vessels in the Black Sea. But we have to remember that one of Russia's primary fleet bases is at Sevastopol in Crimea. And so you'd expect a certain amount of activity there anyway. What we're seeing is a tightening of the screws around Ukraine based on an exercise that takes place about every 18 months anyway. And this mobilization we've seen opposite the Baltics, we've seen it on the borders of Mongolia. It's something the Russian armed forces do in order to modernize and improve their collective capability. What President Putin has chosen to do on this occasion is apply some geopolitical pressure to Ukraine, really because he's trying to sort out the situation in breakaway republics of Donetsk and Luhansk in the east, and also to try and improve the land bridge to Crimea. On the back of that, he's trying to get some geopolitical concessions from the West as well. None of this has worked so far. But what he's done is he's tested Western reactions. That's the first thing. It has put pressure on Ukraine, both financially and in terms of the stress it puts on the government and the people. And he will have drawn lessons from this. And what we have to remember is that he can do this at any time in the future he chooses. So he doesn't actually have to invade to get some of his military objectives.
Yeah. So, Rear Admiral, that's the lessons he's learned. What about NATO? What lessons do you think NATO will have learned from this? And during your time there as a former NATO commander, you wouldn't have experienced anything close to this, would you?
Well, it depends what you mean, Eamonn. My career, I was in 3 wars, so I have experienced it. There's no doubt about it. But what we're seeing here is something that some of us were forecasting from about 2008 onwards, that Russia would come back as a great power. The one thing that disappoints me is that in the face of all the warnings that Russia was coming back as a great power, and also that China was rising, I'm afraid our short-term electoral politicians took no notice whatsoever. And that's the problem in a democracy. People who are good at winning elections aren't very good at strategy. Whereas those who don't have to win elections, like Xi Jinping and Putin, are quite good at long-term strategy. And this is what we're seeing. While we were distracted in Iraq and Afghanistan, both China and Russia were building their military capabilities, are now starting to flex their muscles. Russia here, around the borders of Europe, and China in the Indo-Pacific region, most notably in relation to Japan, India, and also Taiwan.
Rear Admiral, absolutely fascinating hearing from you and your perspective. I wish we had longer. Unfortunately, we don't, but we would love to talk to you again as this whole situation progresses for your analysis. An absolute privilege to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Coming up now, we're going to have all the latest sport with Paul Coit.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Let's get an update on the sports news and Liverpool dominating the back pages this morning. Paul Coit here. This is in the Champions League. Big win for them. San Siro heroes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a brilliant result. See, there's been a fair bit of talk about Champions League because of because they've now banned away goals. You know, the away goals rule.
Counting double.
They thought, which would count double. And so how it would affect games, whereas Liverpool have gone out because they would have been quite happy. 0-0, that wouldn't have affected no away goals, doesn't make any difference.
So the away goals encourages the visiting team to attack.
That is the idea, but then there was talk that it then affected the home team. Honestly, it's so convoluted and so deep the way they've worked this out. Because it was 1965, it came in, it's been in for a long time. So hasn't made any difference to Man City, of course scored 5 yesterday. Day before, and Liverpool I thought were fantastic against Inter Milan, because Inter Milan are a very good side. So to beat them 2-0, take it back to Anfield, very good yesterday.
These were late goals, big stride for Liverpool towards the quarterfinals.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I don't want to put my foot in it, but they've pretty much got 1 foot, I would say. Even if it's like a foot and a half, maybe a foot and a hand already into the quarterfinals.
The other match, Salzburg won, Bayern Munich won. And Borussia Dortmund playing Rangers today.
That's in the Europa League.
Yeah, Europa League.
So you've got Borussia Dortmund, generally Champions League side, and that is a huge game for Rangers. I mean, under Van Bronckhorst, it could be argued that maybe they're not as good or not quite at the level that they were under Steven Gerrard last year. But to go away and face Borussia Dortmund, if they can get a result there, they would be very happy without any away goals and just bring that home.
Can we switch sports now?
Of course we can.
And look at tennis, because I know a lot of people will be wondering what's happening to Andy Murray, who is still trying to make his comeback after all of those health problems that he had.
Don't you worry about him, though?
I do, actually. I do. And I think a lot of people in the tennis world do. But, he loves playing tennis. And as long as he can go on playing it, why shouldn't he? As long as he doesn't mind the fact that he keeps losing, which is what he's done again at Qatar in the Qatar Open, where he's lost to that young Spaniard, that great young player, actually, Roberto Bautista Agut. He lost to him 6-love, 6-1. In 12 games, he only managed to get 1 game back. And I know a lot of people
even worse about Andy.
No. I don't, because when he plays well, he plays brilliantly, and he's a joy to watch. But I think his health problems really are going to be the end of his career soon, aren't they?
He's not getting any younger, is he?
No, he's 34.
We're looking at 34 now.
He's 34.
The big three, they're slightly older, but they're still on top of their game.
Oh, yes.
obviously, we could talk about Djokovic, but that's another reason altogether. But Batista Agut, see, this is really interesting.
Yeah.
He must have nightmares about him because he's the guy that he played in the Australian Open when he was injured, and then it looked like he was going to announce his retirement, and they had the videos. So that was the last time he played him. So I don't know whether it's like bad memories. Oh, no, I've got to face this guy again. So as far as Andy's concerned, I mean, he is a fantastic tennis player, and he is an absolute credit to his sport. He's a credit to the country. Yep. And if you saw the documentary, I don't know whether you saw that, about what he had to go through.
Oh, yeah.
It's just incredible. So the longer he can go on, if he's happy to play, great, but I don't think he'd be happy losing, Angela, because a sportsman like that would never be happy losing to anybody at anything.
No, he's not going to be happy losing, but at least he's on the court and he's playing the game that he absolutely loves.
I wonder how long he's going to go. I mean, maybe will it be Wimbledon this year? Maybe
I doubt it.
Say goodbye.
Oh, he might. Go on? He might, but I mean, he won't get very far.
I mean, the fact that he
even though grass is his surface.
Yeah, and he had a hip replacement, and as someone who's had two of them, I mean, it beggars belief that at that level, at that elite sports level, he is competing still.
At all?
Yeah, at all.
You're still a year away from Grand Slam tennis.
I can hardly walk.
Of course, the other big story at the moment is coming out of the Olympics, and it's this 15-year-old Valieva who is being allowed to compete. Today discovered that she actually had 3 banned substances.
That's right. We were talking about this yesterday, and so she goes in the...
One's unfortunate, 2,
I know.
3.
Yes. I'm sure there's a saying amongst pharmacists about those 3, but she goes today. It looks like she'll win. I mean, it's going to be very unlikely if she doesn't, even though she slipped in the short programme, she still was way in front of everybody. Yes. But there's not going to be a medal ceremony.
No, I'm quite right to.
But the thing is, do you think it is? But surely she shouldn't actually be competing anyway, because what about the other competitors who can't
there's a very
get what they deserve?
There's a very strong feeling among the Olympic group, whether they're skaters or runners or whoever, that actually this whole decision has made a mockery of the Olympics.
And it's interesting because other Olympic committees, you get, for example, the Americans, they're up in arms about it, but then there's just been an announcement. There's a very interesting article in the Times this morning saying that they've written about Justin Gatlin, who was banned twice for taking illegal substances and managed to come back again. And they're saying what a great American he is and what a great... But you think, hold on, talk about double standards. I know. You know, it's all about glasses and throwing stones, and everybody seems to be doing a lot of it at the moment.
Yeah, she'll be brilliant to watch because she is a stunning young skater, but unfortunately I think it's been a real black mark on the Olympics this year.
She'll never have the respect.
No.
Really.
Exactly.
Thank you, my friend.
Pleasure.
We've got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. 25 to 8 is the time. The papers next with David Wooding and Claire Muldoon. But first, the weather, and it's all important because one of the storms of the century is heading our way. There's no weather.
There's no weather. But you've just done the weather forecast.
I'm just going to just say, I think the weather's very important today, so I think we should have the weather. OK, we'll be back after this with the papers.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for...
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Very warm welcome back, and you're watching and listening to Breakfast with Eamonn and Angela.
Right, let's get into the newspapers. We do that in the company of the political editor of the Sun on Sunday, David Wooding, and the broadcaster Claire Muldoon. David, we're going to start with you, and this is front page of the Sun. Angela was pointing this out earlier, that you were a bit worried about how frail the Queen looked here on the front page. Yeah.
Yes, it's shaping up to be another annus horribilis for the Queen. Poor Her Maj, she's had the Prince Andrew case, where he's had to pay about £12 million for the abuse towards the victim of the abuse of Epstein. And now, of course, we've got this story of Prince Charles's charity being investigated for cash for honours scandal, allegedly. Yes, like you say, Her Maj was at a function yesterday, and she said she's finding it very difficult to stay on her feet at the moment and move. So it's a bit of a tough year for her, and this investigation is dominating the front pages this morning. Although the Prince Charles says he had no knowledge of what was going on.
She is 95, of course. I mean, she's great for 95. I just felt that picture made her look for the first time
vulnerable.
Very much.
Yeah.
That's the word.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel very sorry for her. I think she's been a tremendous monarch. And, notwithstanding the fact when I first started watching season 1 of The Crown, it showed her to be an absolutely wonderful, stalwart, stoic woman, mother, head of state, tremendous. And unfortunately, I think her children have let her down badly.
Not all of them.
William and Kate, his wife, I think are hugely respectful of the title, of the monarchy in itself.
I think they're incredible role models.
They are, aren't they?
Can somebody tell me this? Why do we keep calling Kate Middleton when clearly now she's a married woman?
Yeah,
and she's got a married name.
My mother, who's 93, if she knew you before you were married, you still retained your maiden name. She would just be a habit. So we all these people who we would call a certain name, it wasn't their name at all. Their name had now changed, but it
was always Mrs. or Mrs. It would be Mrs. Donaldson or Mrs. Holmes. It was never Eamonn or whatever.
You're absolutely right. Our neighbours, I mean, and my mother, she would have been 50 or so at the time, and it would be go and see Mrs. Patterson or ask Mrs. Cunningham, and we would call people exactly that.
My
all
granny
this business
was
when my daughter, or whatever, when she's boyfriends, and they come and they say, "Hi, Eamonn, how are you?" Sorry. Sorry. That would be Mr. Holmes for you.
Welcome to the 21st century. Claire, you've been looking at house prices.
Well, we have. You're talking about the 21st century. We're now living in it, with houses earning more in a year than the typical worker. And this is the typical British home earned more than the average worker last year. House prices rose by almost £27,000, while salaries stood at just under 26,000.
But the irony about that, Claire, is that if you then think, well, this is great, and you move on,
you've got to pay for it.
You've got to pay for it again. Unless you can cash it in and move downwards.
Well, you can't. But you had a great housing expert on in GB News a few days ago, or a few weeks ago. I watched it, and he was saying, he was a North London estate agent, and he was saying rents are going up. There is no stock.
Yeah.
And if you look at what's happening all over the country with low interest rates, people are getting on and indeed wage increases over the Christmas time. People have had wage increases. We are now pricing ourselves out of the market. Yep. The market, through quantitative easing, when the Bank of England chucked money back into the economy, the rich definitely got richer and the poor definitely got poorer. And no one can achieve the 1970s movement of social mobility, when people were able to move into private accommodation. The house prices were £11,000 to say wages of £4,000. That was achievable.
But
now
Claire,
you've got
you look at your kids.
income multiples.
Would you, and they're in their 20s?
Yes, yes, yes.
Would you say to them, would you encourage them to buy? How they do that, I don't know. Or does renting now become the viable option?
Well, renting should not be a viable option for many reasons, and I'm just touching a couple. It doesn't offer security to the person that's renting the house. You live completely from a month-to-month basis from your house being ripped under you. You're trying to build roots, and schools and communities are trying to be built.
And you're speaking from experience on this.
Huge experience on this as well, However, and, I had to stay in London to school my children and other issues. But now I'm thinking, where do I go? Eamonn knows I've got a daughter living in Belfast who's actually selling her first house now. And it's only because she's got a very good job. She managed to get a first-time buyer's mortgage. And the house prices in Belfast were achievable for her and lower for her.
Yeah. OK, very sad situation that. Now, we've got a big double-page spread in the Mirror, David. Is this a charter for secret justice? As judges in Supreme Court rule, a suspect has the right to keep their identity hidden.
Yes, this is a US businessman who's being investigated for fraud, bribery and corruption, allegedly dating back to 2013, by a news agency, and he has won the right to keep his name secret. Now, what this does, broadly speaking, is that it tips the scales towards privacy away from the public's right to know. So that means that the police and suspects will be able to suppress information about what is going on. So, for instance, if you take the case of Stuart Hall, Rolf Harris, the publicist Max Clifford, all of whom were arrested and charged with and jailed for offences of paedophilia and abuse. In one case, Stuart Hall, for instance, there was only one person had complained, and that could have easily been defeated if it not been for more people coming forward, having seen that he was under investigation.
Yeah.
So it's regarded as a little bit of a malicious. A bit of a problem now for public interest journalism and the right to know.
We have the right to know that Greggs, yes, as in sausage rolls and pasties, have a new clothing line. Now, my point about this is in The Sun, page 9 of The Sun, and it's drawn your attention as well. My point about this is, why would you want to have... I can understand certain brand names, Ralph Lauren or whatever it happens to
I know.
be, but why would you want to be compared to a sausage roll?
Well, it's incredible.
Because that's all you think of, isn't
Claire,
it?
would you wear a sweatshirt with Greggs all over, or a
No,
shirt?
I wouldn't. And especially in this time of gender identity, I would wonder if they thought my name was Greg. However, I do think it's great that they've taken this off, because the youngsters love Greggs as a brand and they love Primark. This is clearly aimed at the Insta generation.
So this is a marriage between the two companies.
What I find interesting about this is the sizes. There's 11 different types of clothing range you can buy here, all branded with Greggs. And they range in size from size extra small to XXL, extra large.
Well, no wonder
so if you eat...
the sausage rolls go, isn't it?
Exactly.
Who eat all the pies?
All for the Greggs. The Greggs
triple XL.
Yeah,
I'll be all right there. I'll get that.
The only trouble is if you're wearing that, people will think you work in the shop. Won't that mean those shoes?
Well, yes,
they'd be asking you, can I have a sausage roll then, please?
Yes, because it looks like a uniform or something. I don't know. But as Claire says, and she's more in touch than we would be on these things, the youngsters love Greggs and
Primark. Yes, they do, or Primark as they call it in Belfast and Glasgow. But definitely, they've really hit the business market here, and they're really going for it. And there's another story here about Pixar. It didn't happen. Kids now love to report things of what happens daily in their lives, and they do their reportage through their phones or through whatever, and then they post it on Snapchat, TikTok. TikTok's an amazing platform now, so it's going to be full. You mark my words. By Greggs and Primark and their collaboration, they've hit it damn on the money.
Do you know what we should have done for TikTok?
What?
It's all about dance moves and things as well. So I should have announced you being here.
Yeah, the Morecambe and Wise sketch, of course.
Should have done something.
Enough.
And all I would have to do was wear a tuxedo, a top hat and whatever, and just look as if I was moving in the background, but I wasn't.
Don't move too much there with your head.
No, darling, no. We'll have to get you one of those very XXX large Greg sweatshirts. Claire, what else have you been looking at?
This lovely story, Claire, about this young boy.
Yes,
have
Joe.
they made any progress with this?
Swindon superfan Joe.
It's a lovely story,
20
isn't it?
pence, a 5 pence and a 1 pence, and
Why
he's
did
written
he
a wee
send the
letter.
money?
Because he couldn't afford to go to a game, is what he
Why
said.
did he send the money?
Why did he send the money, though?
Because it's his superfan. He just wanted to send something to the player. And Swindon...
It was only on $250,000 a year.
Yeah, a 6-year-old boy who posted his favourite footballer 26p after revealing his mum is too poor to take him to games. So Swindon have now put the letter online. They want to see if they can track this child down, who I have to say has got exceptional writing for a 6.5-year-old. My 18-year-old set to do A-levels, his writing is, well, I can't say it on live TV when people are eating their breakfast, but it's not as good as this. So his favourite player is the striker McCurdy, who scored in Swindon's 4-1 FA Cup third-round defeat by Manchester City. The letter read, "Mummy doesn't have any money to come to Swindon games because she has no money for food and has to pay for my dinner at school." So he saved that money up, he posted it, stuck it onto a piece of paper, written this lovely letter, and it's been sent off to
there's no
the football.
address.
There's no address.
So you don't know who... And he's not put his name there, has he?
His name is Joe.
Yeah, but it's not his full name.
Nope. So the club are still currently searching for Joe and his family, and once they've made contact, they will be ensuring that they get a game in style and are well looked after by the club.
Oh, that's fabulous. Well, you see, we were talking earlier about Kindness Day.
Yes, we were.
And I said, I think people are nice, and we'll be talking about it in a minute, but I still think people are nice in the football club.
Yeah.
Well done, the football club.
Yes. Well, let's hope they find Joe.
Yes, what a smashing little boy.
What about, guys,
Yes.
random acts of kindness? Have you got examples of any? Has it happened to you? Have you practiced it yourself? Because we're asking people to share this with us because it is an official day today.
Yes, we've all got to be kind to each other
Yes.
today, but not just for today.
Well,
Yes, we all need a bit of humanity and kindness and not being selfish.
Well, you're finding it all on this panel
We
this
are.
morning,
Look
everyone.
at
We're super kind.
but you see, I'd be a kind person by nature. I know that I would. What I can't stand is all these TV companies that are doing #BeKind when they're all full of Lucifers, all sorts of horrible people, and the hypocrisy, that they practice these things. Be kind to everybody, and I do worry about saying to my own kids, be kind, be accepting that everybody's kind, because do you know what? Everybody is not kind.
No, not everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone has kindness in them. It's whether or not they exercise their right to be kind. That's the difference.
That's very well put. That's put like a lawyer. There's very few of those that are kind, or estate agents, or...
You see, he's doing it again. He's lumping them all together,
none of the above.
He's lumping them all...
If I was a parking warden or whatever, I'd say, "Madam, you're parked there. You're blocking that."
No.
I'm only 2 seconds. Only be here 2 seconds. And I'd say, "That's all right." I'd turn a blind eye. That's being kind.
Well, I can tell you that in the town that I go to as my bolt hole down in the West Country in Devon, in Tavistock, we had a lovely, lovely warden who would do exactly that. Yes.
But if they're working on commission, it could have been a very poor...
I think all traffic wardens should be condemned to room 101. I really honestly do. They're not there to move traffic on. They
not
are
my
there,
lovely one in Tavistock. No.
They are there
Moving on.
revenue boost.
Wardens, they should be traffic facilitators.
Yes.
I believe that they should say, "Miss Muldoon, sorry, there's a space over there.
Yes.
I'll be 15 minutes. That's great. We'll create
Or
that
instead
for
of
you."
temporary traffic lights, employ traffic wardens to ease the displacement from cycle lanes at the moment. Don't get me started on those. To the hold up on the traffic, remove them, get the traffic wardens in, and make London move
Great
again.
ideas. We're all being kind in the studio, and indeed today is a day where random acts of kindness are going to count. And GB News presenter Rosie Wright has been out and about across the capital for us. Good morning, Rosie. Where are you today, and have you found anything like the acts of kindness that we've been talking about in the studio? Have you seen a traffic warden this morning?
No traffic wardens, but where I am is genuinely quite remarkable. In the heart of London's sort of financial district, Goldman Sachs is literally next door, and I walked into what used to be a car park, which now is this fantastic warehouse full, and all morning we've been receiving deliveries of things like this: fresh fruit and vegetable. Even some burgers have already arrived this morning, all of it that would have been sent to landfill, which instead has come here. Now, on Random Acts of Kindness Day, what we thought we'd do is actually actually just showcase some people for whom every day involves recruiting volunteers, getting lots of people to make sure people who don't have something to eat get a meal today. Out of this warehouse in the kitchen, I'm going to show you 2,000 meals will be produced. Now, bear with me because it's a little bit rickety. I want to introduce you to the man behind all of this, who in 1988 founded this, realised there was a real need for people to eat, and it is Peter. Thank you very much for letting us sort of invade and get in the way of your distribution process this morning.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about Food for All.
Food for All, it's just about sharing love. It's about acts of random kindness, because it's all based on volunteers, and actually acts of kindness is basically, it means love. And so it's love for the people, love for the animals. It's all vegetarian food diverted from landfill, so it's great for the environment.
Yeah, I should stress the burgers that arrived this morning were definitely plant-based. Can you just tell us what's happening today?
Yeah, what's happening today? Well, the volunteers start at 8 o'clock in a few minutes. They all come in, and actually nobody's getting paid. So that's part of love. It's like you do something unmotivated, and you can't actually. It's something that you cannot buy, because where can you buy love? So they're all coming from all different walks of life, and they all roll up their sleeves, chop the veg. Then they're all delivering the meals out to the elderly, to the isolated people struggling. We go to the homeless, and like that. And it's not like a charity, we're just sharing some food.
It's 2,000 people who are going to get a meal today. Let's head down to the kitchen so we can see what's on the menu. And just look, we've got couscous here, we've got tomatoes there, almost every bit of space here. Chickpeas is got ingredients that's all been donated that would have gone to landfill. Yeah. Let's walk through it. It's a very chaotic kitchen, and I've already interrupted the chef.
We've got all the vegetables there. We're cooking the veggie burgers over there. We have a cat sitting there, security guard, nobody kicking her. And this is where all the containers get washed.
So let's go into the kitchen now, some very big pots, and it's going to be quite noisy and definitely warm as well. Let's walk through here and let's see what's on the menu for this morning.
We have a small pot here with a vegetable prep. During the pandemic, there was 5,000 meals, which meant 4 of these big pots. So we're cooking a vegetable prep. And on this side, we're cooking some couscous.
That's a lot of couscous. I mean, what kind of quantities are you dealing with every day?
About 60 kilos of couscous. I'm not sure how many exactly. But and then we're making nice. We have a bakery. We're doing the cakes as well.
So what's being made here?
Just like a vegan cake, you know. And this like, because people love cakes, you know.
It's a huge operation. Not only did you feed 2,000 people in the in every day, in the pandemic, that suddenly there was a huge need for your services.
Yeah. So that was a wonderful thing, because people just came forward. Many people had been followed, and they all came forward to offer their services. Like taxi drivers came, they were collecting food, different community centres collecting the food. So the place is rammed with people, all food coming in, food going out. So it's a very wonderful thing, because we're actually here right in the city centre, you know. Generally, where people's motivation is money, and a terrible thing to end up elderly and you're so poor that all you got is money. But people see the higher values in life, and that is a wonderful thing. Random acts of kindness, that's where it's at.
And just finally, you've got the Queen's Award as well this year. That will be hugely exciting. Peter, thank you very much for letting us just completely get in the way. I'll let you get back on with cooking and distributing those meals. That's 2,000 people today who'll get a meal because of what Peter and his team of volunteers are doing here, not just on Random Acts of Kindness Day, but every day.
It's lovely. We want to spread the love. We want to spread the kindness out there. And just so much kindness towards you, Angela Rippon, today. People just loving you being on. Angela looking great to see her on. Love the show. It looks as though she's never been away. And so there you are. People love to see you back in the news environment again. So very nice. There's so many nice things here.
Thank you.
Just make you blush.
I'm having fun, and it's great working with you, Eamonn. It really is. It's terrific.
That's the first time that's ever been said. Very good.
But,
I'll take that one. I'll take that one. So what were you going to tell us?
I was going to tell you that what's coming up in the next hour, which is that we're going to be speaking to the Armed Forces Minister, James Heappey, about the situation in the Ukraine. But first, most importantly today, let's have a look at the weather.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Storm Dudley is now moving away, but in the next 24 hours, Storm Eunice will arrive, a more powerful storm, bringing widespread disruption and, in places, dangerous wind speeds. But this morning starts off with blustery conditions for many. However, a mixture of sunshine and, in the north, showers, those falling as snow over the higher parts of northern England and Scotland. Then further showers push into Wales and the southwest for a time. And away from the showers, there will be some brighter spells. The winds moderating through the day, coming down by the afternoon, but staying cold in the north. 5 or 6 Celsius for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England. 10 or 11 Celsius for Cardiff, London, Southampton. Then it's calmer for a time on Thursday evening, but Eunice rapidly deepening out in the Atlantic, bringing its strongest swathe of winds during the early hours of tonight across Wales, the southwest of England, and then spreading across much of the rest of the south of the UK through the day on Friday. Initially, a bout of wet weather arrives by midnight. That pushes north. It mixes with cold air to bring some significant and disruptive snow to northern England, central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, blizzards over the hills, drifting of snow as well. But the winds are really picking up by this stage. Dawn on Friday across the southern half of the UK. Widespread 60 to 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts from northern England southwards, and in some exposed spots 80 miles an hour, and peaking around the coasts of West Wales, the Bristol Channel, southwest England at 90, perhaps as much as 100 miles an hour. Dangerous wind speeds, dangerous conditions around coasts, and likely disruption in many places, as well as damage to structures. It stays cold in the north, with the snow leading to potential issues across especially the higher ground of northern England, central and southern Scotland, but it's milder further south, with some sunshine replacing the earlier rain by the afternoon.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
And welcome to Breakfast on GB News with me, Angela Rippon, and of course, Eamonn Holmes. And the main news this morning is that the Met Office has been issuing a danger to life warning after 100-mile-an-hour winds have been blasting Britain. A very good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock on Thursday, the 17th of February. And as I say, I'm delighted to say that it's the news with Eamonn Holmes and me, Angela Rippon.
And thank you for all your comments towards Angela. Welcoming her to the station. We're live on TV, we're live on radio, we're on YouTube, where a lot of people are finding us, watching in their thousands now. So wherever you are, however you're watching us or listening to us, you can take us with you. These are the top stories this morning. A danger to life warning after Storm Dudley disrupted transport and left thousands without power.
The UK is now bracing for Storm Eunice, which is expected to blast the UK with blizzards and 100-mile-an-hour gales.
It's been reported that Russian troops are still arriving at the Ukrainian border despite President Putin's claims of a partial drawdown of Russian forces.
The Metropolitan Police are investigating Prince Charles's charity over allegations that it offered a Saudi national cash for honours. Clarence House says Prince Charles was not aware of the alleged offer.
Don't forget, you can join in any of our discussions on this. We've just been talking about National Kindness Day, for instance. Give us your views, gbviews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at gbnews.
Well, as we've been hearing all morning, thousands of homes in the northeast of England are without power yet again after Storm Dudley hit last night.
Train services were also cut off. The Met Office issues an amber alert warning. Days of extreme weather still ahead with a second storm, Storm Eunice, set to hit most of the country, but particularly southern Scotland and more northern parts of England from dawn tomorrow.
And joining us now is Scotland reporter Davy Donaldson. Good morning, Davy. What is it like up there? Oh, it looks cold and miserable.
It is cold and miserable, you're not wrong there, Angela. It certainly has been, and yesterday ScotRail cut the services at 4 o'clock, all train services across Scotland at 4 o'clock, and little wonder given the winds and the rain, torrential rain that we saw yesterday afternoon and yesterday evening. Those services, some of them are expected to come back on at about 10 o'clock this morning. Certainly one that has come back on is the main commuter route between Edinburgh and Glasgow, so I'm sure a lot of people will be grateful about that. Over my shoulder is the Forth Rail bridge, though no trains at all since I've been here going back and forth. So as you can see, still lots of problems across Scotland in terms of the rail network. We've seen trees falling, blocking rail lines, blocking roads. We've had overhead power cables been ripped down. One, a pretty spectacular picture in Kilwinning on a ScotRail line there that was ripped down. Calmac, the ferry company, they've suspended services, although some of those should return to normal as we go through the day. But it's not too bad at the moment. The wind has died down, the rain stayed off, but it could be very much the calm before the storm, because we've heard, of course, that Storm Eunice is on its way, and there are warnings in place across Scotland for snow and ice, certainly across the north of Scotland and the northeast of Scotland, although you get the feeling that may travel southwards to where I am at the moment.
Is the frustration, Davy? I mean, it looks quite serene around you now, but this is literally the lull before the next storm, and we reckon by this time tomorrow it'll be a completely different picture.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like I was saying, there's ice and snow warnings in place there, Eamonn, so certainly expecting some snow across Scotland, along with the winds that could make it extremely hazardous in terms of driving conditions and cause traffic chaos, because people just won't be able to go anywhere, or you would imagine people will get stuck while they try to get to their destination. So yeah, plenty of things in place there. As ever, you would expect Holmes to be without power. The usual suspects, the Western Isles, the northeast of Scotland and the far north of Scotland, the areas that are usually pretty badly hit in terms of power cables being brought down. So, yeah, it really is a case of bracing yourself. I think it's not been too bad last night. It was very high winds, a lot of rain, but it's not been too bad. Obviously, the train services were affected, but I think the snow coming, the snow on its way, that's going to have a huge impact.
I was looking at some comments online from people yesterday when we were talking about these storms, and there was one certainly from somebody in Yorkshire who said, oh, we just call it weather up here. But presumably where you are in Scotland, they do take it more seriously. So are people able to sort of take any precautions to ensure that if the power does go, if they lose their telephone lines, that actually they can still survive?
Well, I'm from the far north of Scotland myself, Angela, so I'm well used to power cuts. It was almost a weekly occurrence growing up. So yeah, I usually just had the old gas cooker out there, the gas camping cooker, and some candles. So yeah, it's pretty much the people in the far north of Scotland, the Western Isles, as I said, the northeast of Scotland, are very much used to these conditions. So they know what's coming, they know what to expect, and they know how to prepare for it. So as for the rest of Scotland, well, usually it's a bit more difficult for them because they're not quite so used to having it in such a dramatic scale and so frequently. But yeah, snow on its way here and ice. I can't wait to be reporting on that tomorrow.
Davey, thanks very much for the update. Appreciate that. We're now going to go to Sarah Thornton. Sarah is a meteorologist from weathertrending.com. Sarah, ahead tomorrow, I mean, we're talking about one of the storms of the century.
I think that's hyperbole at the moment, but I mean, certainly it is looking very, very strong. And we know that it can be possibly one of the strongest we've seen for many a year, since at least 2014, but possibly even stronger than that. So we'll have to wait and see. The problem with it has been that it hasn't formed yet. So we're talking about something that's only just starting to form. And we've been looking at it as meteorologists on the output, the model output, for several days now. And so it has been very difficult to track down the exact positioning of this storm and the exact implications of the strong winds that we're talking about. It's been a busy old time in the weather studio here, let me tell you. But now that the models are coming into line, they all sort of have a very similar track, with the strongest swathe of winds towards the southwest of the UK and across southern counties, tracking its way eastwards through the afternoon tomorrow. I mean, you're talking about very populous areas, of course, and your correspondent just talking there in Scotland about how they're used to this kind of weather. We're not used to this kind of weather further south. And so I think it is going to be very impactful. The wind speeds we're talking about inland across southern counties of the UK, 75, possibly 80 miles an hour. And towards the southwest of the UK, late tomorrow morning around the lunchtime period, potentially over 90 miles an hour along the coast there, 95, 100 miles an hour. So impactful weather certainly is on the way for tomorrow. And at the moment, the Met Office has its amber weather warning out. Originally, we started with a yellow weather warning, and it was for the whole of Wales and for most of England. And when you see a massive warning area, that swathe of the country covered by it, you know it's because we don't know the exact refinement of the track. So that was a couple of days ago. Yesterday, the Met Office then moved it up to an amber weather warning, which is that next mid-level tier of warning. And I think today we may well start to see some red weather warnings coming out. Reds are incredibly rare. You probably get one, maybe two a season, depending on how stormy it's been. And they tend to be, of course, for extremely powerful and damaging winds. I think that's what we're likely to see tomorrow.
Sarah, thank you very much indeed. Whatever storms there are, reckon to be hitting land by dawn tomorrow and there for the rest of the day. It's an interesting thing, this, Angela, that this will happen often. We don't really see storms during the day.
No.
The winds that Sarah was talking about, they're going to hit people on their day-to-day business, and that's why the advice is you don't have
stay
to.
in. I tell you what I hope, and we've not had an opportunity, unfortunately, of talking to anybody from the power companies this morning, but the last time we had this major storm back in November, power lines went down, and it was weeks before people were actually back on full power. I'd like to know whether or not the utility companies are better prepared this time round, because by the sound of it, from what our guest there was saying and Phil was saying earlier, it's going to be a mighty storm, and there's going to be a lot of damage.
How can they be prepared for weather like this because of the infrastructure of the power cables? I mean, unless the power cables are going to be buried underground, where they probably should be, they'll just come down again. All the work with those repairs that you're talking about, useless. It'll be devastated again.
But let's hope the engineers are on site and on standby, ready to cope with it this time and do a
job. Thank you to those engineers who are available. Let's get an update now with the rest of the news on this Thursday. America has accused Russia of adding a further 7,000 troops near the Ukraine border after claims from Russia that it was withdrawing personnel.
Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is warning that Europe shouldn't be lulled into a false sense of security and that the crisis could last for months.
Almost 15 million people were left waiting for post over the Christmas period, according to Citizens Advice.
Their research is showing that includes 2.5 million people who missed important documents, including health appointments, or that they were unable to pay a fine or bills. More than half of the people surveyed went a week without letters.
People who catch COVID-19 have a 60% higher risk of suffering depression, a study in the United States suggests. Experts tracked almost 154,000 people over a year, and they found they also had an increased chance, I think that should be, of struggling with substance use and sleep problems. Angela, great response here. Good morning, says Linda. I'd just like to say what a joy it is to see one of the old-style newsreader presenters back on TV. I do enjoy watching the show. Angela is like vintage champagne. Hope this is not the last time we see her. Like, tell me this. For years, for how many years were you the face of news on the BBC?
Oh, I can't remember. It was a lot.
A lot.
Yes,
a lot.
it was quite a lot.
And then, you know, when that came to an end, your life changes, I suppose, greatly. Were you prepared for what was ahead? I mean, had you a plan?
No, not at all, actually. And I stopped reading the news because I was bold enough to go from BBC television to work for ITV, for TVAM, which we were talking about earlier. And in those days, you just could not work for the BBC and ITV. It was just absolute taboo. You couldn't do it. So for a year, I was actually completely out of work after I left the news. But I did end up going to America, and I worked for CBS Television on the East Coast in Boston and had a wonderful, wonderful time. And came back after a year with a couple of awards, which was rather nice. And I'd only been back in the country, I think, about 3 weeks. And Frank Boff, who was then presenting Breakfast on television with Selena Scott, rang me up and said, "Oi, Ange, you're back. Do you want to come and do the papers for us?" Which I did. And, well, I've been on the telly ever since.
You've never went away
No,
since.
come dancing.
Yeah. Bill is watching us from Tenerife. I'm watching GB News from my home in Tenerife. What a great stand-in for Isabel is Angela. Robin, great call, GB News. Let's see more of the icon that is Angela Rippon. Stylish, intelligent, well-informed, consummate professional. A great fan of Isabel, but when she's on holiday, please let's call Angela. There again. Glenys, lovely to see Angela Rippon. Doing a great job, a real blast from the past. Keep up the great work, guys. So, loving the show, says John. Please give the legendary, gorgeous, brilliant Angela Rippon her own regular show, please. Seriously.
Goodness.
So there you go. There you go. Excellent stuff. Thank you very much indeed for that. 14 minutes past 8 o'clock.
And the United States has accused Russia of adding 7,000 more troops to Ukraine's border, despite their claims from President Vladimir Putin of a withdrawal of troop numbers.
For more on the situation, here's Major General Chip Chapman, who joins us now. Major General, a very good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome, Eamonn.
No, thank you. What do you make of what has been going on this week? Sometimes it seems something is going on and then it seems nothing is going on. Where are we at with all of this?
Well, I think you have to go back first to April 21, when the initial invasion scare of this round started. So if you take the period from then until now, that 10 months, you could say that this is a tool of coercive diplomacy from the Russians to try and achieve their strategic objectives by other means, that is, short of war. If they don't achieve it by that, then you could say that there would be potentially an invasion. And I think you have to look at some of the things that the intelligence community say. So, for example, Ben Wallace's missive last week that Russian invasion was highly likely. Highly likely is an intelligence term which is often used by the Joint Intelligence Committee to give you an 80 to 90% chance of an invasion. However, nothing is inevitable until it happens. And of course, it is the Russians who initiate and control the timetable. So what we've got at the moment is absolute surveillance by the Western powers to verify really whether there is an off-ramp from the Russians, or whether there still is what we would call a fight tonight capability. That is, whether in force, space and time, the Russians could go at very short notice to have an invasion.
General, let me put this to you, because something of what you've just said suggests that perhaps you're thinking that there's a lot of saber rattling going on here. And I have read quite recently that basically up until now, with the world and his wife beating a path to Putin's door, that he's actually achieved the three things he wanted to, which is, first of all, he's intimidated the Ukrainians. Secondly, he's reminded Europeans of how how determined they are to maintain their gas supplies. But most importantly, what he's done is he's put Russian security concerns absolutely top of an international agenda. And he's made himself look really good at home. That's what he's always wanted to achieve. And that's precisely what he's been doing over the last several weeks.
Part of that's true, Angela, but you have to reverse the coin. And the other side of the coin is, of course, it's made President Zelensky of Ukraine look very good. And again,
Yes.
This is a sort of continuum, because you have to look at what Putin says. Now, Putin in 1989, when the Berlin Wall came down, was a KGB officer in Dresden, in East Germany. Since then, he's always said that the demise of the Soviet Union, particularly he said this at the Munich conference in 2005, was the biggest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. And one of his strategic objectives is to regain lost territory and spheres of influence. Now, actually, what he's done, and again, part of this continuum is last July, he put out an essay which was about the Russian idea. And the central idea in that was, you are Russians, you are not Ukrainians. Now, that has been comprehensively rejected by the Ukrainians. And you've actually got more Ukrainian nationalism. So in terms of him achieving the strategic objective in Ukraine, I don't think he's achieved that. And the number of or percentage of people who say that they would fight against an invasion is somewhere around 45%. And it's not armies that fight wars, it's nations. And so unless he can subdue the Ukrainian nation alongside the Ukrainian army and the political polity, and of course Putin will probably have got someone to take over as a puppet regime if they do invade in scale. I'm not sure they will, but they will try and emasculate Ukraine by doing something in the Donbass. And we see that particularly in the last couple of days, maybe, with Putin's thing about genocide in the Donbass. Now, Lavrov, the foreign minister, used a similar accusation in 2014. And when you start doing those things, that can be your false flag operation, or your thing which gives us what we call the casus belli, the thing which causes or justifies war from a Russian perspective.
Major General, just finally and relatively briefly, if you could, for us, bearing in mind all that you've said there, bearing in mind the achievements you think that Russia has gained from what has been going on, how high are Ukraine's chances now of joining NATO? Have they changed?
No, they're nil, and they were always nil at the moment. It remains in the Constitution, but they are currently nil, as they were 1 year ago.
Okay, very succinct, very to the point, Major General. Thank you. We'll say goodbye to you and really appreciate your input. Thank you very much indeed, Major General Chip Chapman.
Well, coming up, home economics with GB News' own Liam Halligan. But in the meantime, pin your ears back, because here comes the weather.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Storm Dudley is now moving away, but in the next 24 hours, Storm Eunice will arrive, a more powerful storm, bringing widespread disruption and, in places, dangerous wind speeds. But this morning starts off with blustery conditions for many. However, a mixture of sunshine and, in the north, showers, those falling as snow over the higher parts of northern England and Scotland. Then further showers push into Wales and the southwest for a time. And away from the showers, there will be some brighter spells. The winds moderating through the day, coming down by the afternoon, but staying cold in the north. 5 or 6 Celsius for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England. 10 or 11 Celsius for Cardiff, London, Southampton. Then it's calmer for a time on Thursday evening, but Eunice rapidly deepening out in the Atlantic, bringing its strongest swathe of winds during the early hours of tonight across Wales, the southwest of England, and then spreading across much of the rest of the south of the UK through the day on Friday. Initially, a bout of wet weather arrives by midnight. That pushes north. It mixes with cold air to bring some significant and disruptive snow to northern England, central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, blizzards over the hills, drifting of snow as well. But the winds are really picking up by this stage. Dawn on Friday across the southern half of the UK. Widespread 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts. from northern England southwards, and in some exposed spots 80 miles an hour, and peaking around the coasts of West Wales, the Bristol Channel, southwest England at 90, perhaps as much as 100 miles an hour. Dangerous wind speeds, dangerous conditions around coasts, and likely disruption in many places, as well as damage to structures. It stays cold in the north, with the snow leading to potential issues across especially the higher ground of northern England, central and southern Scotland, but it's milder further south, with some sunshine replacing the earlier rain by the afternoon.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Uh, 23 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock on this Thursday morning. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Eamonn and Angela.
As tensions remain high between Russia and Nato over the Ukraine, many in the West are calling for tougher and more stringent sanctions to be imposed on Russia. Well, to tell us more is our economics and business editor, Liam Halligan. Good morning, Liam.
Good morning. To see you, Angela. Broadcasting legends before me.
Well, we're all legends in this programme, darling. Now, let's have a look. Can we just stick with the Ukraine at the moment? Because I'm fascinated by the fact that, as well as all of the arguments that there are over Russia providing Europe with its gas, one of the things that bothers me is the way that many of people in Russia are actually fighting a very dirty war commercially, with all the cyber attacks that are being made and companies being held to ransom. Not just companies, but the National Health Service in one instance, with utility companies in others. Russia really is playing whatever they're doing in Ukraine, they're playing a very dirty war commercially throughout the whole of Europe, aren't they?
Well, let's be clear, it wasn't so long ago. In my adult lifetime, Russia was a totalitarian dictatorship. There are quite a few bad actors there. There are undoubtedly people in Russia who have huge world-class technological capability, and they can do bad stuff if they want to in both the government and the corporate sphere, if you like, Angela, as you say. And I think what's interesting now is, 24 hours ago, it seemed as if this Russia-Ukraine tension was dialing down with troops withdrawing. Now you've got the US saying the troops aren't withdrawing. Actually, more troops are coming to the Ukrainian border. And you've got Joe Biden and Boris Johnson saying that unless there is significant de-escalation now, there will be a tough package of sanctions on Russia. There have, of course, been sanctions on Russia by both the US and the EU since 2014. And we should be in no doubt. And this is part of the negotiation. There's obviously military tension, but there's also financial and economic tension too, which will affect all of us. If there are more sanctions on Russia, the price of oil and gas will go up even more at a time when many of us are struggling to fill cars with petrol and diesel, 80 quid now to fill the average car. Many of us are looking with trepidation at these increases in household utility bills that we know are coming in April. And the Russians know that. They know they have stuff that we need. Oil, gas, grain. Russia's the world's biggest grain exporter. Potassium nitrate, what's that? That's how you make fertilizer. And Russia is a massive exporter of that. If they stop those exports to the West, we're going to have a much harder time growing our food, which will push up our food prices. So, this is remnants of the Cold War. Of course it is. There are big military tensions here, but there are very, very significant financial and economic tensions, which all of us will feel in our pockets if those tensions escalate.
Day after day, Liam, when we talk and, when I listen to your analysis and we think, well, things can't be that bad and there may be a way through this and whatever. But yet again, even here, sanctions will be counterproductive for us all there. So by and large, Liam, this is shaping up to be a really quite a depressing year. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel that you see?
Well, economists are known as dismal scientists, but believe it or not, I am quite an upbeat person in general. And there is a lot of really good stuff happening in the UK economy. There's a lot of bounce back in manufacturing, the service sector, hospitality. Unemployment's still at an almost record low of just over 4%. And many businesses are expanding after this pandemic, employing people and doing pretty well. We just grew last year, Eamonn, by over 7% our GDP, the overall size of our economy. That's a post-war record, partly because of the bounce back, but we still achieved that. We're still on to grow this year, 2022, faster than almost any other economy in the G7 group of advanced industrialized nations. We're still attracting a lot of inward investment from the rest of the world. So there is quite a lot of good stuff happening in the UK economy. But I think what's a really big theme of our time, of our age almost, and it will hang around for at least the next few years, is this cost of living squeeze. Here on GB News, on my On the Money show at 1 p.m, across all our outlets, we talk about trying to beat the squeeze constantly because lots of our viewers contact us about that, asking for tips, asking for ways that they can tackle the falling cost living standards, given that inflation's going up faster than wages for so many people. And I think when you look at this Russia-Ukraine crisis, I was a Moscow correspondent in the 90s. I spent a lot of time in Russia and Ukraine. It does seem like a country a long way away on the fringes of Europe. But be in no doubt, Russia is a major global economy and our economy is seriously intertwined with Russia. Just one example. The big oil company in Russia, Rosneft, it's the biggest oil company. There are US sanctions on Rosneft. Well, guess what? A fifth of Rosneft is owned by BP. So many of our pension funds are invested in a massive oil company on which there are Western sanctions against Russia. So this is a globalized age. We are much, much more intertwined economically with the former Eastern Bloc, particularly the former Soviet Union, than we were when we were all starting out as journalists during the height of the Cold War. And that's why there is this tension about whether or not militarily we put more sanctions on Russia or economically we think, is that really going to do us any good?
That's the big question, Liam, and I'm sure it's the one that you'll be not only posing but helping to answer in your programme On the Money at 1 o'clock today. Thanks very much indeed for that.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Now,
8:30 is the time. You're listening and watching Breakfast here on GB News with Eamonn and Angela.
And coming up, we've got a look at the papers with David Wooding and Claire Muldoon.
That's next.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
And welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Eamonn and Angela. And it's time for us to go through the papers now. And joining us this morning, we've got the political editor for The Sun on Sunday, David Wooding, and broadcaster Claire Muldoon. Claire, kick us off, will you, with an interesting story about China from The Times.
Right. Chinese rush for British universities. We've always enjoyed international partnerships in the UK in terms of Russell Group universities and indeed the top two, Oxford and Cambridge. Now this year, we've seen a 12% increase in applications. The statistics are coming from UCAS, of course. Whereas, 47% increase from children or young students in Nigeria, what they've seen post-COVID, post-pandemic, is actually a reduction in mature students applying for university and those from the poorer homes. Now, the sharpest rise, as I said, came from Nigeria. We're up 47%, although overall applications from the EU were down this year.
Not surprisingly.
Not surprisingly, down, and the number of Irish students backed the trend. Now, we live in in terms of tertiary education, it's quite unrealistic at times in our country, because if you live and study in Scotland, you apply, you get the £9,000. You don't need to pay the £9,000. And yes, it's a 4-year course. Whereas if you study in Wales or England or Ireland, you must pay £9,000 in terms of tuition fee, regardless if it's an old college turned into a university or one of the top Russells, as I've said, and Oxford or Cambridge. So now what we're finding is that if you live in England and you want to study in Scotland, you can't study there unless you pay the £9,000. Completely unrealistic. So what I think is going to happen is students from the EU will apply to more Scottish universities, but overall, the Chinese are still in rush for British universities. And interestingly, they're not concerned about the status of which ranking the university comes in at. They are wanting to study the best course, because what they're going to do is there's not a migration of talent or labour. They're going to go back to China and use their knowledge
Claire, I'm
and work
listening
it out
to you
there.
and I'm sitting thinking, why do I care? Why should I care?
Because the universities need the money for a start.
Right, but is the
Because
university
they're
here
getting
to
income, aren't
educate?
they?
Are they
Yes.
here to educate our country? Are they here to educate the world? Or is it just about making money?
China are there to educate China because they're taking the talent and the education back with them.
So we're losing out, are we?
In terms of in financial terms, no, we're not, because the universities get far more money from international students, but it's the control. It's the control. And we were talking earlier about the Russians and the Chinese money not being able to be put into to buy British citizenship. I think it was £2 million, David, we were talking about. So now that's been removed. They're going to put the money back into society, back into the universities through tertiary education. But the main point is they are taking the talent back to China, and that's where it's going to be used.
Are they taking back our political values as well, though, back to a very strict communist country?
Well, the very strict communist country, they've still got spies, as Barry Gardner found out, much to his chagrin.
Yes.
And much buried under the papers.
Right, let's go to the Mail. David, this is with you. We're talking about working from home. So all these folk that work from home now, they're converting rooms in their houses, the rooms that were, for instance, bedrooms.
Yes, there are now 9 million fewer bedrooms in the UK. They've all been, what do you do in your bedroom?
Don't ask. Too much information at 8:30 in the morning.
Offices now, right?
Yes, they've got desks. The beds have been moved out and the desk has been moved in. So it's become, sleep has become a place of work now. So 4 out of 10 people have been working from home. And a lot of people now haven't gone back to the office. We know about the civil service. I went round the Treasury to meet a minister a couple of weeks ago. And the place was deserted, 11 o'clock on a weekday morning. There were rows and rows upon empty desks. Where were they? They were all in their bedrooms. And apart from...
What's new?
Yes, working, allegedly. But some of the rooms have been converted into, during lockdown, people, the handymen and women, have changed them into gyms, bars even, cinemas, music rooms. People have started adapting their houses. So.
I tell you what, the big question for me is, though, what's going to become of all the office space that is now not being occupied by people going to the office?
They'll be changed into apartments.
But will they? Can they do that?
Good question.
They can do that, and that's something that's came up during the pandemic. Lots of people were saying about affordable housing, and we covered earlier that house prices are rising more than the average wage, which is shocking. So we're now left with this dearth of inner city, all cities all across the United Kingdom, of office space being completely empty. Let's use them, let's redevelop them, and let's get people back in the cities.
Well, the thing is, David, not only are these bedrooms being converted, but there's a big cry for employers to pay for the conversion, to pay for your conversion at home into an office.
Yes, there's a big argument going on here about we're all saving if we're staying at home. The cost of commuting into work, the cost of buying a lunch and all the things associated with going to work, the cost of having to wear a smart suit. I mean, if you're broadcasting from home, you only see the top half, don't you? But similarly, you're running your heating bills now. That's the thing that's really going to hit people working from home this winter, because heating bills, as we know, are rocketing. So there's going to be a cost for working at home. Get back in the office fast, I say.
Yeah.
And do you think employers should pay for that?
There has to be. There is a tax benefit, apparently, if you work from home. Look that one up. But yes, if they're using your office, then I worked from home for about a year and a half. I was a district reporter in the northwest of England, and I worked from home, and I was given an answering machine and a telephone bill was paid for, and I got a home office allowance because they didn't have to pay for office space.
The only problem is we're talking about people who presumably have enough room in their house to, to have some sort of office. What about the kids, the youngsters who are working in large offices, who are perhaps flat sharing, renting a room, and they're using the ironing board as their desk or whatever. They're in a room, stuck on their own all day. That's when they get isolated and lonely, and that's when they get mental health problems. And an awful lot of young people are not only missing the camaraderie, but also they haven't got that sort of the peers around them that they can learn from and bounce off and support them.
And it's creativity, Angela. I mean, when you're with other people, you do spark ideas off each other and keep things.
So there's got to be a balance, hasn't there?
They spark more than ideas off each other. How many of you watching today would have had an office romance, would have met your partner? It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true at work. So how many of you get in touch with us today and let us know, without the office, without the workplace, without the factory, would you have been with the partner that you're with today?
Do you know what I'm going to do? Do you know what I'm going to do, Eamonn? I'm going to buy a water cooler, put it in the bedroom, and then me and my wife can meet at
Oh, you can meet round the water cooler in the morning. Now, there's a thought. Now, actually, earlier in the programme today, Rosie was at a food bank where she was talking about Be Kind to People Day today. And you've got a story about food banks.
We have. It's covered in The Guardian. Hunger gap. Demand is rising, but donations are down at a food bank. And they've been to Whitstable. 7% rise in cost in the Canterbury Food Bank last year for the supply of its standard food parcels. Rising, yeah. And £35,000, the charity's estimated bill for food this year after rising prices led to a shortfall in donations. This has been focused on Whitstable, obviously a seaside town.
Yeah.
I would say that seaside towns like Hastings, like Scunthorpe and, down south in Brighton, etc., there might be something else going on here. And this something else is the displacement of locals from their families, from society, from their roots, into, social cleansing, in effect, moving them out so they can't afford to move back in the meagre times of winter, and they rely on the seasonality of seasonal work in these towns and coastal areas.
Cornwall and Devon, Cornwall particularly, is a huge problem.
Absolutely, and I think it's so shocking. We used to have the succession of nomenclature, of families, of that lovely familiarity, that spirit. It's lost, it's gone.
Yeah. So not only have you got that problem that people get themselves in financial trouble or whatever, but donations to food banks is also down as well. So that community spirit, that act of kindness, I mean, a lot of places rely on supermarkets making those donations and forming an association with restaurants and whatever for this. But we have in our street, for instance, we have a food bank that we put out a collection point every Saturday, and people go along and little things build up to a lot of things.
Eamonn, we are a developed country. We are not an underdeveloped country. The fact that we have food banks in this country, I think, is absolutely abominable. They really are. It's shocking. People should not be relying on handouts in today's society.
Meaning what?
For food.
How do you avoid it?
Well, people should be involved. Well, firstly, they should learn how to cook. They should learn how to shop. It's these basic home economic skills. You were talking about your mum, when she was 50, she was still calling her neighbour Mrs. Robertson or whatever. Yeah. It's that respect, it's that coming together of families.
If you haven't got money to feed your kids and you can...
But why don't they have money to feed their kids?
Well, I tell you, they don't. Because I would have been like you a number of years ago, and we do this work. I sit on the board of the Manchester United Foundation. A lot of football clubs have foundations now, and you go out into your community, and the level of need is absolutely humbling that for whatever reason, I can't answer your question why they can't afford their kids, but they can't afford it.
1 in 4 children in my local authority are living in poverty, and we are a developed country. This should not be happening.
And like you say, a lot of it is shielded. There's a facade on some of these seaside towns where you see the luxury and the lovely restaurants. I went to Cornwall for the G7 last summer. Some beautiful places.
Yes, looks lovely in the summer.
While I spent a week there, I spoke to the local people and saw just how deep the poverty is in some parts of it.
Housing problems, low incomes, very, very high rates of unemployment. And people forget that.
It's going back to basic needs. Shelter is a basic human need. And if that's taken care of, then communities can grow. We have stability within those communities. And then instead of relying on drugs and alcohol and addiction, we can focus on building families and building the future.
Oh, here's a very good story, Claire. I want to concentrate on this because this affects me as well. I'm facing the same situation, and it's never reported correctly.
Nope.
It's in the Express, it's page 17. It's a retrospective tax called IR35, and because it's people like Adrian Childs and people like me on the telly, whatever, none of you care less. You think you've all got the money and you can all do this.
Yep.
But when the thieving revenue come to you, they are thieving.
They are.
It's a retrospective tax. We've all paid our taxes. Then they go back and they said, you know the way we said it was okay that you're a freelance? Actually, we've changed our minds. You're not. And actually, you owe us 10 years tax and national insurance, which you've already paid. No sympathy for this. And when they come for you as a window cleaner, as a gardener, as a taxi driver, you'll know all about it. IR35, remember that. Right, what's happened to Adrian
It's
Childs?
not only the Express, but the FT have picked it up as well. And Adrian Childs has won an appeal over his £1.7 million claim for
Well,
his
he
tax.
hasn't really. What's happened is he's still going to have to pay that tax. What he has won is they've said, well, you didn't do this deliberately, Mr. Childs, despite what the revenue have said. So we're allowing you, you do not have to pay the national insurance involved in this. So basically, he's had like about £500,000 legal fees to pay. He's £1.2 million in back tax that he's had to pay over 10 years. But they've said you don't have to pay the national insurance on that.
Well, the HMRC technicality on this is that people as freelancers are working as disguised employees.
Disguised. They said it was all okay. They said you're freelance, you're running a business, you employ people around you. But there's no sympathy. The country's broke. There's no point even protesting against this. But it's thievery of the highest order. So Adrian Childs hasn't won anything as such.
Pyrrhic victory by the sounds of it.
Sorry?
A bit of a Pyrrhic victory by the sounds of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, the good news is you've just saved yourself £400,000. You don't have to pay us, which you didn't owe us in the first place. The bad news is you still owe us £1.2 million. That's it. But you see, employers get off of this. Adrian Childs has had no sick pay. He's had no holidays.
Well,
he's had no
that's it.
shares in anything. He's had no benefits of being staff. Yet, the revenue say you are staff, but whoever he's working for, the BBC or ITV or whatever, they've got away scot-free.
Yes.
With whatever.
I just wish HMRC would look at some of the contracts that are put out sometimes, which make it very clear that you are a freelancer and not a member of staff.
You're not. For instance, we're not allowed to be freelancers here on GB News because of the revenue. Not because we're not freelancers, and you'll see me popping up in Angela, whatever, popping up on the BBC and ITV and Channel 5, whatever it happens to be. But that still doesn't make us freelance, apparently, according to the revenue. So everywhere you go, you have to be staff. Long story, but, you know.
And as such, I think that it's a warning, actually, to people, unlike us who work on television, who actually do quite well with our salaries. That it's the people
I disagree with you. Well, if we were running a shoe shop and then
that's what I'm just about to say.
Yeah, a hamburger store.
If you're somebody who's running a small business, if you're a window cleaner, if you're a builder or whatever, the rules are going to apply to you too, not just to people who work on the telly. That's the point I wanted to make.
Remember, it's 10 years back.
Exactly.
10 years back. And
that's the point.
And it is thievery. Do you know what? You're right about the 10 years, because even if they were saying from next Monday we're changing the rules, then everybody could adapt to that. It's the fact that they will ruin lives. They absolutely ruin people and say, not only are we going to reclassify you, we are going to go back into your records and you're going to owe us money you never thought you owed in the first place. And the thing is, of course, whoever saves money, if you earn money, you spend money. So who's got it? That's the whole thing.
Yep.
Anyway, the time with that, guys. Thank you very much indeed for your look through the papers today. 12 minutes to 9 o'clock. David and Claire, appreciate it. Thank you.
Now, the US says that Russia has added 7,000 additional troops to the Ukrainian border. Now, this is despite the fact that President Vladimir Putin has been saying that he's welcomed a security dialogue with the West. Well, joining us now is the Armed Forces Minister, James Heapney. Minister, good morning. Heapy, good morning to you, Minister. What do you make of what is actually happening in Russia at the moment? As we were saying earlier, the world and his wife from Europe has beat a path to his door. And still, we don't seem to know whether or not he really is planning an invasion or if he's just playing Russian roulette.
Well, he might be doing that. I think, however, that the evidence is that he continues to be very much preparing for an invasion. We've seen in the last 48 hours bridges being built over the Parry River between Belarus and Ukraine, field hospitals being constructed. Many of the units that have been involved in exercises in Belarus and southern Russia have moved now into positions from which you would think that they would launch an attack. All of the combat air is in place, the missile systems, the artillery. So we are very, very concerned. And what we're seeing on the ground is not matching the rhetoric from Russia.
At all, Mr. Heapy, do you think there's any credibility or any areas where the Russians have reasonableness on their side, that it's reasonable to engage in negotiations with them, that, in other words, they may have a point on certain things?
So, well, look, it's definitely reasonable to enter into negotiations, because the alternative is either President Putin just remains with a sort of vice-like grip around Ukraine, which would be destabilizing for Ukraine's economy, for its politics, and for its security, or he crosses the border into Ukraine, and I think that really is still the most likely thing that he is preparing for, and we end up with a war in which tens of thousands of people die, both military and civilian. So the idea that we should negotiate through diplomacy absolutely should be the case, yes.
Yeah. So you could see a scenario where we would go to war over this?
No, I don't. To be clear, I think that President Putin is preparing to cross the border into Ukraine. I don't know whether he has made a decision to do so once and for all yet, but I just observe what we're all seeing with troop movements towards Ukraine. Really important to be very clear with your viewers and indeed with President Putin himself that Ukraine is not a member of NATO. The UK has brought all but a small team of troops that are protecting the ambassador in Kyiv. Everybody else has left the country. All of the training mission that had been going on in Ukraine for the last 10 years has departed. And the UK would not play, nor would NATO play, an active part in any conflict in Ukraine because Ukraine is not a NATO member. We are, however, reinforcing NATO's eastern borders to reassure our allies and to make crystal clear to President Putin that that line in the Washington Treaty, that an attack on one is an attack on us all, still very much applies, and that NATO is watching very carefully indeed.
But clearly Putin doesn't care. I mean, he knows that everybody is watching him. He knows that. But presumably, if he does walk into the Ukraine, where does that leave NATO? Where does that leave Britain? Where does that leave America? Do we just have to stand by and watch this happen?
Well, first and foremost, he won't just walk into Ukraine. I think it's important that he and the people around him know that the Ukrainians are a proud nation. The Ukrainian military is vastly better equipped and prepared now than it was in 2014 when he annexed Crimea, and that he will face the most incredible fight if he tries to achieve his objectives militarily. I think that, I don't think he has achieved what he wants. In his essay on the historical unity of Russians and Ukrainians, he clearly made a case for the fact that Ukraine shouldn't exist, and it is indeed part of Russia. I think he believes that. But he also has made demands around pushing NATO away from Russia's borders, trying to get countries that have joined NATO since the Cold War to be made to leave, commitments from the US that it wouldn't put certain weapon systems into the European continent, and he wants to see Russia back at the top table of international diplomacy. Let's all be clear that he will achieve precisely the opposite if he goes ahead with this. Russia will be cast out, he and his ministers will be cast out as international pariahs. The economic sanctions will be wide-ranging and severe, both on the Russian government and on the elites that surround President Putin. NATO will reinforce its eastern borders, not pull away. The US will re-engage in the Euro-Atlantic, not carry on its current trajectory towards the Indo-Pacific. So everything that President Putin thinks he wants to achieve at the strategic level, beyond any territorial gain he seeks in Ukraine, he will fail to achieve if he crosses that border.
And Minister, what message is he going to give the Russian people if, as you say, the Ukrainians are a very proud people, their army is prepared to defend and to fight, and the Russian body bags start going back into the country? How is he going to explain that to the people of Russia?
Well, look, I'm afraid that President Putin has not shown the same regard for the men and women of the Russian armed forces as we show for ours, and all of our allies show for theirs. Very, very few Russian mums and dads get to receive the body of their killed soldier draped in a Russian flag. Far too often, President Putin is seeing these fatalities be buried in the battlefield, and that is an unfortunate reflection of the way that he does his business. I think we have to be very clear with the Russian public, even if President Putin is unwilling to be clear with them, that the Ukrainians will fight, that this will be bloody. in the Chechen war, 6,000 Russians died in a war in a country, a region with a population of 1.4 million. The population of Ukraine is 44 million. The scale of the losses that both sides could face are just horrendous. And, there's a sort of sense, I think, that people talk about this as if it's just a news story. It's just TV images on a screen. What you're seeing on your screen are advanced, sophisticated weapon systems that are capable of taking life in huge quantities. This needs to be avoided at all costs. And frankly, it's not just about Russian soldiers, so Ukrainian soldiers that we should be fearful. I'm fearful for a completely unnecessary loss of Russian life too. And I wish that the Russian public were more aware of what President Putin and his team are thinking and the costs that could be imposed on Russia as a result.
Minister, thank you very much indeed for your time. We have to leave it there. James Heapy is the Armed Forces Minister and a Conservative MP. Thank you very much indeed. 4 minutes now before 9 o'clock, and as we've been reporting throughout the programme today and pointing out, today is Random Acts of Kindness Day. Rosie Wright has been out and about to find a little kindness coming her way and hopefully your way this morning. Rosie.
Eamonn, I have done exactly that. We have hot-footed our way over now to the Battersea Dogs and Cats home. Let me introduce you to Parker, this beautiful little kitten who was found abandoned in a cardboard box in a car park, who's now one of 70 cats here at the centre looking for a home. Now, this is a bit of an instruction to me and also to my guests. It says here, our cats like quiet so they can sleep. Please keep noise to a minimum. That is something I'm going to try and do this morning. One couple have already turned up this morning, picking up their brand new cat to take home, and we can find out more now because Steve joins me, really the man in charge. Steve, just talk us through the process, what's happening here, all these cats, all these dogs that need a home.
Yeah, so Battersea's taking in dogs and cats every day from people that are in need or animals that are stray or abandoned. We bring them in, we make sure they're behaviourally and medically okay, and then we rely on our wonderful volunteers, staff to get them ready, and then fantastic supporters that want to come in and take them home.
There are many different ways you can be kind. Of course, you could adopt a cat, you could come and spend some company with them. You could also knit them a little mouse as well, which you've seen lots of these here this morning. Just tell us, people at home who are interested, how can people help volunteer if taking on a pet would be too much?
Yeah, obviously we've got the Knitting Kittens events that we have. We also have other events like Muddy Dogs. People can come and volunteer on site, spend time with our dogs and cats, just to make sure that they have time spent with people whilst they're in their kennels and cattery pods. So there's lots of details on the website as how you can get involved to support us.
Steve, thank you very much. From Random Acts of Kindness Day, lots of people here being exceptionally kind. Really appreciate your time, Steve.
Thank you. Very kind of you to give us your time as well this morning, Rosie. Appreciate it bringing us those stories. We're going to take a break there. We want to preview this whole storm Eunice arriving. Well, we'll be in the middle of it this time tomorrow. It arrives at dawn into the country, and it's going to be one of the biggest storms of the century. More on that after this.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
An amber danger to life warning has been issued as 100-mile-per-hour winds are going to be blasting Britain. Good morning, it's 9 o'clock on Thursday the 17th of February, and this is Breakfast on GB News with me, Angela Rippon, and Eamonn Holmes.
Thank you. Live on your TV, live on your radio, on YouTube, where a lot of you are recently watching us in your thousands. So wherever you are, and you've been getting in touch all day very kindly, welcoming Angela to the programme. I think you can come back again.
Oh,
I think
I haven't
so.
blotted my copybook too often.
I think that's safe to say. But honestly, calls here from Port Ballantrae, from Wales, the Black Mountain Reindeer Lodge, all around the whole country. People are just delighted to see you, and thank you very much. That's an act of kindness. We're trying to
It is. Thank you, and I'm delighted to be here, so thank you very much indeed. Thank you for letting me sit in Isabel's seat for a day.
Leading the news this morning, the Met Office has issued an amber danger to life warning after Storm Dudley disrupted transport and left thousands without power. Britain is now bracing for Storm Eunice, expected to blast us from dawn tomorrow with blizzards and 100 miles per hour gales.
It's being reported that Russian troops are still arriving at the Ukraine border despite President Putin's claims of a partial withdrawal of Russian forces.
Also coming up, England will follow Wales and Scotland to start offering COVID jabs to all over 5s.
But they won't be prioritised over MMR or HPV jabs. Well, you'll be able to join in any of our discussions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews, and we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, what's the latest on Ukraine? Well, America has accused Russia of adding 7,000 more troops around Ukraine's border, despite claims from President Putin of a drawdown in troop numbers.
And joining us now is GB News' Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, good morning. What do you make of all of this? Because so many different messages are coming out of this story, aren't they? Are they moving troops? Are they the troops that they had previously in a different part of the border? What the heck is going on?
Yes, good morning to you both. A lot of finger pointing that's now taking place, but I think the analysis from Western intelligence agencies is that far from withdrawing troop numbers, as Russia is saying, that actually the numbers of troops on the border with Ukraine are on the increase. So it was about 130,000 for quite a few weeks now. They believe it could be up to 150,000 from down in Crimea, up through eastern Ukraine, up to Belarus itself. And crucially, Vladimir Putin is now at a stage with his armed forces, so that's ground troops surrounding Ukraine, but also naval assets in Crimea and the Russian Air Force. He is in a position, if he so chooses, he could launch an incursion into Ukraine. Now, we've got to say, from Russia's point of view, they've always denied that that is their objective. This is a regular set of exercises they do. But it's very provocative.
Now, look, I mean, we know that NATO cannot do anything. We cannot put boots on the ground. We cannot interfere. But if he does make an incursion, what is this going to do to the stability of that part of Europe?
Well, it's the stability of that region, you're right, which will be under severe jeopardy. That is why you're seeing now the UK doubling the number of armed forces in Estonia, a NATO ally. In Poland as well, 350 Royal Marines have gone to that country to double the number of British troops there. It's all about trying to reassure very nervous, understandably nervous NATO allies in the region, because they will be impacted, make no doubt. If there is a sizable incursion into Ukraine, there will be a humanitarian crisis with people spilling over the borders into these neighbouring countries as well. So there is a great deal of concern. What Vladimir Putin is trying to gain from it? Well, of course, he doesn't want Ukraine to join NATO in the first place. I'm not sure it ever was going to be joining, not for a very long time. And what he's succeeded in doing, of course, is to galvanise NATO at a time, especially under President Trump, where the very existence of NATO was being questioned. So now you have a re-energised, rejuvenated NATO that has spoken just yesterday. The Director General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, spoke about additional battle groups going into Eastern Europe. In Romania, France is going to spearhead a battle group there. So it seems counterproductive from Vladimir Putin's point of view.
So this is going to ramp up what we always used to refer to as the Cold War once again, isn't it? We're going back 20 years in our history.
Certainly, in terms of the troop numbers there, this is the biggest ramping up, the biggest sort of troop deployment since the Cold War. And the rhetoric with it, of course, has become increasingly bellicose. So it is a very worrying time. But NATO is being tested here. The West is being tested here because countries like China are looking on to see how the West responds to Russia. Because remember, of course, with China, they are becoming increasingly bellicose in their language towards the likes of Taiwan, with many analysts believing it may only be a matter of time before they decide to invade what they've always regarded as a renegade province.
And we've seen China and Russia actually being very close together, haven't we, in all sorts of ways, with President Xi basically saying to Putin, whatever you do, don't rain on my parade and do any invasion during the Olympics.
Yeah.
So presumably we should be really on our mettle as from the beginning of next week.
Yeah, I mean, it is an increasingly strong alliance between Russia and China, and going forward, it is one to watch, and it is one, of course, that the analysts, the strategists are looking at, and, you know, they know they've got to step up their game in geopolitical terms as well.
That would be a very dangerous alliance,
Well,
wouldn't it?
Yeah, potentially, of course.
Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And great to see you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Good to see you too.
Did you watch her when you were a child?
You know I did.
Now, look, I know lots of people come up to me and say, I used to see you reading the news when I was doing my homework at school. I don't need it rubbing in. So
an inspiration for me to get into broadcasting.
Absolutely,
you know?
right. And
Absolutely.
also, there's an awful lot of love out there for you today.
Thank you.
You should bask in it.
Well,
Isabel should be worried.
Talking about the news, let us bring you up to date. No, she shouldn't. Let us bring you up to date with the latest news headlines, in which the US has accused Russia of adding a further 7,000 troops near the Ukrainian border after claims from Russia that it was withdrawing personnel.
The Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, has warned that Europe shouldn't be lulled into a false sense of security and that the crisis could last for months. Almost 15 million people were left waiting for post over the Christmas period, according to Citizens Advice. Research shows that includes 2.5 million people who missed important documents, health appointments, or were unable to pay a fine or bills. More than half of people surveyed went a week without letters.
Local media are reporting that the victim of a shark attack in Australia was a British national. Witnesses said the swimmer was attacked by a 15-foot great white shark, the first fatal attack in Sydney in nearly 60 years. Police closed local beaches as they continue to search for the predator.
They reckon that shark attack in Australia, they reckon the victim was wearing a black frogman outfit.
Looked like a seal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
To a shark.
Yeah.
That's
I went diving with great white sharks off the coast of South Africa, and they are mighty beasts. I was in a cage, I have to tell you. It was an awesome experience, I have to say, to see these killing machines literally that close to me. But I wouldn't want to be in the water with them, and it would put me off swimming in deep water anywhere off South Africa or even Australia, I'm
you
afraid.
wouldn't stand much of a chance.
No, I wouldn't.
With that
No.
one. 9 minutes past 9. Stop Scams UK and Global Cyber Alliance launched a UK-wide 159 call service, which is designed to guarantee consumers a safe route to contacting their banks. The scheme is urging people to stop, hang up and call 159 to check that calls are for real.
Now, suspicious emails, if you've got one of them, forward that email to report@phishing.gov.uk. That's PHISING, not FISHING. And this is something that I've got quite an interest in because, as you probably know, and some of your viewers might know, Eamonn, I present a programme called Rip Off Britain on the BBC where we deal with a lot of scams and a lot of these, the things that have got people parting with their money to fraudsters. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, during the last 2 years, fraudsters and scammers, particularly online, have had a field day because people have become a bit more vulnerable simply because they're isolated and they don't have necessarily contact with their family, so they can talk over things and say, "Oi, I got a thing, on my email." And we've recently done a story about a brand new scam that's going around on the WhatsApp platform, and it's called Hi Mum and Dad, and it's just a great warning to all viewers. If you do get anything that comes through, if you've got a WhatsApp account where your children say, "Hi Mum and Dad, you'll notice I'm calling from a different telephone number and I'm in real trouble because my phone has been stolen and I need, £1,000, £500 or whatever urgently." And obviously, parental response is, "Oh my gosh, I've got to help my kid." But you mustn't do that. If you get anything like that on your WhatsApp account at all, do not telephone the number which is then given to you either in the message or when you see it at the top. Phone the number that you know actually belongs to the member of the family or a friend or whatever it is, because if you do, you'll go straight through to the scammers. And we were doing stories where people had one family lost £1,800 and another £5,000. Fortunately, because the law has changed, the banks had to give them their money back. But what it does to people, what it does to their confidence, to find that they've been scammed by individuals. And those other two notices that we gave you, the 159 and also the phishing email, so many people are now being targeted by scammers, and it's coming from banks, NHS, from HMRC. I know they're not your favourite people, but people getting messages from them as well. And I'm afraid that scammers are having a field day at the moment, and millions are being lost to them.
And a lot of you will say, "How could you be suckered like that?" It is strange, isn't it? But when you see something, I know. When I get these sort of messages now, I usually do this sort of consensus around my family, and I go, have you got something like this, or what's this like? And it's always my younger children who will say, "It's a scam, Dad, it's a scam, Dad." And you just get out of it and leave it alone. But then you wonder how they got your phone number in the first place, how they had your email in the first place.
Yes.
But it's easily
on the dark
done,
web,
isn't it?
We've done programmes on the dark web. You should see the material that is there. It's frightening on the dark web. They can get all sorts of material on you.
Good luck. Continued good luck with your programme and what you're trying to do with that as well. Just want to bring you up to date now on the Storm Eunice situation. Dudley has come and gone. Eunice tomorrow from dawn. Amber warnings been issued, meaning threat to life with that one, okay? And we were hearing from a meteorologist earlier today that there's every likelihood that amber could become red.
Very much so, and indeed covering the whole country, which again is unusual, and during the day, which is what we've talked about before. So let's speak live now to our North East of England reporter, Rachel Sweeney, who's keeping an eye on the power outages after Storm Dudley last night. Rachel, what's the update? What can you tell us?
It certainly doesn't feel like Storm Dudley is over. Standing here in Durham, the wind is still extremely strong. Northern Power Grid have confirmed in the last hour that there's still 1,000 homes without power. 400 of them are in the northeast of England, and where I'm standing now in this open area, because we've had a warning about flying debris, the surrounding postcodes have had 280 homes without power, so they were the worst hit. There's also been a huge impact on travel disruption this morning. LNER have said that they're expecting significant disruption because of Storm Eunice tomorrow. They've said do not travel at all between King's Cross, York and Leeds. Wind has damaged a wall and overhead power cables, and that's really affecting the Tyne and Wear metro service. So if you're trying to use that, I would avoid it if you can, but also check before you travel. We've had loads of road closures through the night, but they are clearing now, although there are still warnings for high-sided vehicles. So yes, Northern Power Grid, you'll remember, were heavily criticised after Storm Arwen because we had people still relying on generators weeks later up in Northumberland. But they've said that they're coping well with this storm, with Storm Dudley. People are expected to be back on the grid this afternoon. We will keep an eye on it and we will keep you updated right here on GB News.
Thank you very much indeed. So be aware, Rachel's advice there is if you don't have to go out tomorrow, do not go out. From dawn tomorrow, it's going to come in via Liverpool, across the middle of the country, and as you say, affecting the whole country. So the advice is if you don't have to go out, don't.
No, stay at home. Now, children aged between 5 and 11 are going to be offered a COVID vaccine in England and Northern Ireland. They're going to be catching up then with Wales and Scotland, where they already have it. Experts are saying it may reduce risks to children, those sort of risks that they could face in a possible future wave, or indeed the risks from another variant.
Right, this is going to happen from April. For reaction to this, Dr. Mohammed Kaki joins us now. And Dr. Mo, what about this? Is this the right decision? There will be a lot of concerns over vaccinations. A lot of people, they just don't want anything to do with it, especially amongst the young. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. There's a lot of question marks about it. One thing we know is that children, thankfully, throughout the pandemic, haven't been so badly affected. And we also know that to date, something like 85% of children have had COVID and have been okay. So the question is this the right time? Is this the right thing to do? And I think that's what parents are worried about or asking. I think the challenge with COVID has always been the uncertainty. We don't know if you're going to be completely fine or if you'll develop long COVID. We don't know if you're at risk of passing it on as a child to vulnerable relatives. And I think this is where the vaccine can play its part.
What's interesting is that long COVID is now seen as it's an accepted medical condition, and it can be very unpleasant, can't it?
Absolutely.
And I don't think we've ever assumed that children would necessarily fall foul of long COVID. But as we were hearing from one of our guests earlier in the programme, they do, don't they? And it can destroy that child and indeed the family.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the child, the future, the potential, everything that you want from your child is suddenly taken away. And of course, the impact on the wider family is massive and the community as well. So I think that's something that we are considering as part of this. Is that why the JCVI have approved it and said, well, look, this is something that's available. Now, of course, the thing to remember is it's coming out in April and it's not mandatory. It's optional. And I think that's the point that's really important for us to emphasise, that we want parents to know the evidence, that the JCVI have published their paper online, read the paper, have a think, speak to family and decide and feel informed in that decision.
Just have the confidence to do it.
Absolutely, yeah.
One of the things I thought was interesting, which I hadn't considered before, was, OK, not only is this going to keep them safe from the virus itself, but this whole idea of long COVID, I didn't really factor that one in because, if you're 5 years of age, 10 years of age, you could be talking about something potentially which could affect you for the rest of your life.
Yes, and I think this is where healthcare practitioners who are sort of looking at the vaccine as a good methodology and kind of promoting it are saying, well, look, we're in a situation of uncertainty and a lot of us may get COVID and be fine, but it's the ones who get COVID and develop long COVID is the challenge. And because we can't predict that, and the last thing you want is for your child to have it, that's where a lot of parents will say, look, I'd like to have it. Again, though, a lot of parents are saying, well, look, my child's been fine, other children have been fine, I feel like it's okay. And so I think I can understand the concerns and the anxieties. And of course, that's why we say it's so important to...
But your advice would be?
Well, my advice...
Quickly?
I think parents should make a decision based on their circumstances and read the papers and feel informed.
Right, and do it with confidence if they're going to do it at all.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, coming up, we're going to be finding out all the news from the world of showbiz with reporter Ellie Phillips. But first, the most important news of the day, really, the weather.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Storm Dudley is now moving away, but in the next 24 hours, Storm Eunice will arrive, a more powerful storm, bringing widespread disruption and, in places, dangerous wind speeds. But this morning starts off with blustery conditions for many. However, a mixture of sunshine and, in the north, showers, those falling as snow over the higher parts of northern England and Scotland. Then further showers push into Wales and the southwest for a time. And away from the showers, there will be some brighter spells. The winds moderating through the day, coming down by the afternoon, but staying cold in the north. 5 or 6 Celsius for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England. 10 or 11 Celsius for Cardiff, London, Southampton. Then it's calmer for a time on Thursday evening, but Eunice rapidly deepening out in the Atlantic, bringing its strongest swathe of winds during the early hours of tonight across Wales, the southwest of England, and then spreading across much of the rest of the south of the UK through the day on Friday. Initially, a bout of wet weather arrives by midnight. That pushes north. It mixes with cold air to bring some significant and disruptive snow to northern England, central and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, blizzards over the hills, drifting of snow as well. But the winds are really picking up by this stage. Dawn on Friday across the southern half of the UK. Widespread 60 to 70 mile-per-hour wind gusts from northern England southwards, and in some exposed spots 80 miles an hour, and peaking around the coasts of West Wales, the Bristol Channel, southwest England at 90, perhaps as much as 100 miles an hour. Dangerous wind speeds, dangerous conditions around coasts, and likely disruption in many places, as well as damage to structures. It stays cold in the north, with the snow leading to potential issues across especially the higher ground of northern England, central and southern Scotland, but it's milder further south, with some sunshine replacing the earlier rain by the afternoon.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Finish the programme today with our look at showbiz. Ellie Phillips here to talk about things, beginning with Taylor Swift.
Yes. So the big news today is that Taylor Swift has pulled out of Glastonbury. This is a report from The Sun. They've said that Taylor's not going to be performing at Worthy Farm later this year. She was originally lined up 2 years ago and signed up to be one of the headline acts. And most of them have rolled over because Glastonbury was cancelled for 2 years because of the pandemic. But she's now pulled out and said that she wants to focus on re-recording her album. So she's been re-recording all of her previous material because of an ongoing dispute that she had with her former manager. So she won't be performing, which is a real loss, really. She's fantastic live performer.
But they've got a great lineup apart from her, haven't they?
The lineup is amazing.
It's amazing.
Friday night we've got Kendrick Lamar, we've got Diana Ross doing the Legends on Sunday afternoon, and Billie Eilish was recently announced as the youngest ever headliner.
Yes.
She'll be there on Friday night.
Angela, let me ask you, would you, Glastonbury?
I never have, no, but my colleague Julia Somerville went, and she said the first thing she packed was her Wellington boots. That was enough to make me think, no, I wouldn't want to go.
That portable lose. No. Yeah, so we like that. What have you got to tell us about Molly May Hague?
So Molly May Hague of Love Island fame became the creative director of Pretty Little Thing about 6 months ago. And last night she had her first runway show as creative director. She worked on a collaboration. The stage was full of diversity. They had models of all shapes and sizes. They had a model in a wheelchair, one with a prosthetic leg. They had all different races. It was really good to see this. So that was a really positive spin.
So ticking all the right boxes
all
there.
All the right boxes, and really, really good to see that on stage. But on the not so great side, the clothes were not that great. They weren't that different. They looked a bit basic. It's nothing we haven't seen before. And as well as that, there were actually protests outside the fashion show because people are very against. It's well known that Pretty Little Thing pay their garment workers not a lot at all. And there was news in the past about sweatshop workers in Leicestershire. And so people are saying, you've paid this creative director, Molly May from Love Island, hundreds of thousands of pounds, pay your workers.
For fans of Magic Mike, we've maybe seen even more.
Oh, yes. So Matthew McConaughey basically has reached out to Channing Tatum to say he wants back in. So Matthew McConaughey was in the first film as the bar owner, Dallas, Mike's boss. He wasn't in the second instalment, XXL, but the final one is coming called Magic Mike's Last Dance, and Matthew McConaughey wants in, so I'm very keen to see this.
And is he going to be stripping?
Yes, and actually, do you know
what? That's the only bit we want to know.
Exactly. And actually, Channing Tatum said he wants this to be, the stripping Super Bowl. He wants to be really good with the dancing and see it all go full out.
Ellie, great stuff. Thank you very much indeed. And great stuff from you, Angela Rippon. An absolute pleasure and an honour to be beside you here today.
It's been great.
So, Angela, guest presenting today in place of Isabel, who's on a bit of a half-term.
And she's back on Monday.
She is indeed. I won't be. I'll be on half-term, and it will be Stephen Dixon standing in for me. Thank you very much indeed for all your company. Stephen and Anne Diamond back to do it all again tomorrow from 6.
Thanks for your company. Bye-bye.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Storm Dudley is now moving away, but in the next 24 hours, Storm Eunice will arrive, a more powerful storm, bringing widespread disruption and, in places, dangerous wind speeds. But this morning starts off with blustery conditions for many. However, a mixture of sunshine and, in the north, showers, those falling as snow over the higher parts of northern England and Scotland. Then further showers push into Wales and the southwest for a time. And away from the showers, there will be some brighter spells. The winds moderating through the day, coming down by the afternoon, but staying cold in the north. 5 or 6 Celsius for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England. 10 or 11 Celsius for Cardiff, London, Southampton. Then it's calmer for a time on Thursday evening, but Eunice rapidly deepening out in the Atlantic, bringing its strongest swathe of winds during the early hours of tonight across